Ready when you are. Welcome to the Lincoln City Council meeting of May 4th, 2026. Please be advised a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted at the back of the chambers by the northwest door. Let us all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a short moment of silent meditation. Please remain standing if you are able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The order of business of City Council is as follows. The clerk will call items listed on the agenda. Under public hearing, anyone wishing to speak on an item must first register and sign in at the table located in the lobby. The council shall require any member of the public addressing the council to identify themselves, the name of any organization represented by such person, and their address, unless the address requirement is waived to protect the security of the individual. Each speaker should state whether they're speaking in favor of or in opposition to the item. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Anyone wishing to speak on an agenda item shall come forward after the clerk reads that item and the applicant has presented. After public comment, the applicant may make one short rebuttal. After all public hearings, the council will vote on resolutions and items listed under third reading. On the second and last Mondays of the month, immediately prior to adjournment, anyone may speak on any issue not on the agenda for that date nor planned for a future agenda. We ask that all speakers strive for civility and allow the business of council to proceed unimpeded. Will the clerk please call the first item of business?
Our first item of business today for the City Council meeting of Monday, May 4th, 2026 is the consent agenda, sections 1, 2, and sections 3.
All right. Do we have any staff reports on the consent agenda? Is there any public comment on the items on the consent agenda, items 1A through 1M? If so, please come forward now. None, we can proceed.
We can vote on these items. Item 1A is approving an agreement between the City of Lincoln and the State of Nebraska Department of Transportation for the city to perform responsible charge hours for the 33rd and Cornhusker Viaduct project, introduced by Shob.
So moved.
Second.
Thank
Second
you.
by Weber.
Left me hanging.
Any
there.
discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Shob,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Item 1B is approving the professional services agreement between the City of Lincoln and Nebraska Department of Transportation to provide construction engineering services for the Cornhusker Highway between 39th Street and LX 55 project, introduced by Shob.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Weber. Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Shob,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. I'll call item 1C through 1H together, and it's approving the assessment resolution for College View, Havelock, North 27th Street, University Place, West O Street, and South Street Business Improvement Districts, and assessing the cost against the benefited properties, all introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Duden. Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Shob,
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Items 2A through 2C were introduced by Shob.
So move.
Second.
Second by Weber. Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Weber,
Yes.
Shob,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. That concludes our consent agenda. We shall move to section 4, which is public hearing and liquor resolutions. I'll call item 4A. Item 4A is application of SMG Food and Beverage LLC doing business as Pinnacle Bank Arena for special designated licenses to cover an outdoor area measuring approximately 700 feet by 448 feet at Pinewood Bowl at 3201 Coddington Avenue on May 23rd and 24th, June 19th and 20th, August 4th, 13th, 16th, and 21st, and September 4th from 8 a.m. to 2 a.m.
All right. Is the applicant here? Hey, yep.
There's Tim.
Welcome. If you want to start with just your name and address and tell us about the application.
Good afternoon, members of council. My name is Tim Savona. I'm the general manager at Pinnacle Bank Arena in Pinewood Bowl, 400 Pinnacle Arena Drive. Appreciate your consideration of this item. This is our annual SDL licenses for shows that occur at Pinewood Bowl, ticketed concerts. As of right now, there are 9 of them, as the dates are listed accurately as you've set forth. And we would appreciate your consideration to allow us to do this again. We enjoy it very much.
All right. Thank you. Council, any questions for the applicant? Councilwoman Washington.
Mr. Savona, here's an opportunity for you to tell us, why would we be coming down to Pinewood Bowl this summer?
Why should you?
Yeah, like
Well,
who's
yes, we have entertainment for everybody. We start off Memorial Day weekend with Brantley Gilbert and Aaron Lewis, followed the next night by Styx with Cheap Trick. Lots of diversity in shows that occur at Pinewood Bowl with a lot of classic rock, some country, some alternative acts and things of that sort. So really, it's just a phenomenal venue. We hear it all the time. It's a place of art and entertainment, and I don't know, if you haven't been to a show there, I guess you just got to see it. You know, it's got a natural slope to the seating audience and very little light pollution, so you get a very nice evening under the stars, and people have grown to really enjoy it. So,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Council, any other questions? Appreciate it. Thanks for coming down, Tim. All right. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item 4A? 4A. If so, please come forward now. Seeing, excuse me.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Reading the agenda. Since I see no one else coming forward to discuss this, you'd like to move approval of item 4A.
I'd second.
Second by Weber. Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Okay, that concludes section 4 of the agenda. We'll move to section 5, public hearing resolutions. I'll call item 5A. Item 5A is appeal by Robert R. Oat on behalf of Black Forest Homeowners Association of Special Permit 26010 to allow for the Willowmere Forest Estates Community Unit Plan on property located at 6400 Old Cheney Road.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name's Rob Ott, 9810 Hollow Tree Drive. This comes on an appeal from the Planning Department. I'm reticent to do it, but I represent the Homeowners Association that has been in development for 25 years or so with my partner John Rollis. The issue really is the connection between the development, which is the old Fritsch property, comes through Black Forest Estates, and it's determined that that's going to be the only access. Black Forest has a private drive, and we've had some discussion about whether or not the new development should pay something for repair and maintenance of the Black Forest Drive that they will access. The city has required that has mandated that they can't use the original access to the Fritsch property. It had access to Old Cheney Road. There was a dedication of an easement back in, I think, 1999 when Black Forest was originally developed to roll over into the Fritsch property. The issue really is the fairness of having this development use Black Forest Drive without paying a fair share of the costs. I will say the development is kind of the development that Mr. Rollis and I had planned had we bought that piece of property, but we didn't. And the issue regarding costs, the developer has agreed to pay some of the owners along Black Forest Drive a little bit for a limited period of time. The Homeowners Association in total in Black Forest pays half of the costs of that drive. And the developer hasn't been willing to offer anything to the Homeowners Association for use of the drive. It's a dedicated easement. We understood that. We understand that now. We understand that maybe they don't ever have to pay anything. We just think it's an issue of fairness, and I have some members of the Homeowners Association that are particularly grumpy about the idea that this new development comes in, uses the drive, and doesn't pay their fair share. What can you do? Well, I won't say nothing. Originally, when Dr. Carveth, who originally developed Black Forest, and Dr. John Fritsch, who had the Fritsch property, when that was being developed, can I put this up? I don't use this very often, so. Okay. Getting there. I think it's thinking. There we go. So if you all can see this reasonably well, can I zoom in somewhere? Last time I messed it up. So originally, when the Fritsch property concept was done, here is Pin Oak, which is this connection that I'm talking about. So this was the original plat. This was concept, and I drew the 4 lots that Dr. Fritsch and Dr. Carveth agreed to develop on Dr. Fritsch's property. Now, the property is asking for, I think, 9 or 10 lots, which doubles the capacity on a private drive. Again, I'm not suggesting that you're going to do this, but one option would be to restrict the current developer in terms of how many lots he can access from that piece of property. The other thing that I would say could be done is that the Frontier Road, which is right at my fingertip, Frontier Road could access that piece of property, and there could be a connection there. I know planning really hates that idea, but I'll show you a couple of pictures. So here's Frontier Road looking onto the property. This is a minor arterial, which requires separation of 660 feet. I've shown you those connections, 846 feet on one side and 595 feet on the other. It's not quite enough, but it's pretty close. The concept that could be required would be something like this, which is a connection to Frontier, coming back onto Black Forest with a cul-de-sac at the top. Again, I'll leave these, but you know, we thought there should be an agreement with the homeowners association for a payment of costs. The homeowners are kind of grumpy about it. I'm not sure if you're willing to do anything, but I felt like I needed to at least share the frustration of dealing with a neighbor. We fully support the development that they want to do, assuming that they would pay their fair share of costs. So, any questions?
Council, what questions do we have? Councilwoman Washington.
I think most of my questions are going to be for planning or LTU or something. But Mr. Ott, thank you for coming forward. I understand this is an unusual situation. I don't think council typically gets involved in trying to negotiate agreements between two private parties.
I agree.
But it also feels like you've been put in a position that I could make a statement that if not but for the decision of the Planning Commission, you wouldn't be in this situation right now.
Well, true, and I would say, but for the developer not being willing to negotiate with the homeowners association, they will pay something over a limited period of time to some of the neighbors, but they did not negotiate with the homeowners association. That's what I'm a part of, and so I felt the need to address that.
And when the homeowners association or the previous developers for Black Forest developed the road Pin Oak and you provided the easement, for how long was the road supposed to be a private road with a public easement?
Oh man, that's a really good question. I would say perpetually. We knew that connection was always there. There's a little stub that's been built there now, so we knew it was going to stay there. We knew that there was an easement over the top of it. We always thought that eventually, if there were 4 lots, that really is inconsequential. Now that it's more than double that, we think that there should be some contribution to the roadway. It's hard because there may be an opportunity in the future to make that a city street, but that's really complicated, difficult, and expensive.
And my reading of the report here was that that's 2 private roadways. So when you come off of Old Cheney, you're coming onto a private street.
Yes?
And then Pin Oak is also private, the little
True,
stub.
yes.
But that the developer of the next project is looking for the roadway inside that development to be a public street.
That's my understanding. It is really an odd, it's just an odd situation, it just is, where you connect a private roadway to a public roadway on each end. So, Old Cheney, you turn onto it, that's all public. All of the rest of Black Forest now, because of changes in the city codes, is all public roadway, designed to public roadway standards. So it's only Black Forest Drive and Pin Oak that is the private drive. Yeah, really unusual. It's an unusual situation.
Yeah.
We're putting a little box here.
I can see the box you're being put into, and it's an interesting situation.
It is.
Councilman Weber.
You'd think you'd seen them all.
Thank you, Chair Carlson. Judge Ott, Mr. Ott, thank you so much for coming down. It is, I feel like, better to be on this side of a judge than if it was reversed.
And Rob would do fine.
Okay, thank you, Rob. So I have the Planning Commission summary pulled up here, right? And the prior representative for the Homeowners Association spoke in a neutral capacity and said that they expressed confidence in the developer's willingness to work with the neighborhood. It sounds like that has not occurred. Is that accurate? And if so, do you feel that there could be confidence in having productive dialogue with the developer if this were to be delayed?
Hope springs eternal. They did make a small contribution to the group of neighbors along Black Forest, true, but have not reached out to us. I thought maybe they would after I appealed this, quite frankly. I don't know. I would hope that might be true. It's just not a lot of money. It just isn't. But nobody's reached out to me at all.
Ready. Thank you. I appreciate that clarification.
Council, what other questions do we have? Seeing none.
Questions for staff?
I do have questions for staff,
All right.
Before staff.
Yeah.
but yes.
Good afternoon, Council. I think we got a little out of order here. As we were the applicant on the project, and I think even as an appeal, we have the right to speak first, then have the appellate speak, and then have a chance for rebuttal. So I just wanted to jump in before we even go to staff questions.
Thank you.
Because I think I kind of got beat to the gun here. But be that as it may, yes, we represent the developer of this project. I want to give a little more history. We did the new pre-application process. I'm sorry, thank you, Tom. Mike Eckert, Civil Design Group, 8535 Executive Woods Drive, Suite 200. So yes, during the pre-application process, which is a great new process where we get formal comments, we knew about the private road situation, and there's other private roads in town that other neighborhoods drive through and use. And so we wanted to respect that in the essence of the big construction that's to go on. So we, without any discussion of any of the neighbors, proactively went in with the planning department and LTU and got an agreement for them to allow us, I'll put this up, to use the existing driveway for the house that is at 6400 Old Cheney Road today. So this is Old Cheney Road, and this is the driveway right here that comes into the property. And so what we asked and requested and they approved, so this wasn't something the city asked us to do. We said we'd like to bring in all of our heavy construction equipment to do, well, the removal of trees, which is now done, the paving, the sewer main, the water main, the storm sewer, grading out the detention cell, and all those other items, so that we would keep it off the private road. And they've agreed to that. and that is in the community unit plan, and that is of record. So with that in place, we then continued to work with the neighbors, and we did work with the neighbors that were the 14 homeowners that reside on a Black Forest Drive. And so this exhibit from the staff report is probably best. So Old Cheney Drive, Old Cheney, you come in, and this has been, Black Forest Drive has been a private roadway that has existed for those 14 homeowners since 2021. Their subdivision was actually designed to have another road come out here when this project got developed to the west. And those people on that road didn't want Mr. Ott's new subdivision folks driving over it, so they got that changed, did some different things there. And so today they're still the only people that live on that drive. And then there is a stub between two lots, which is a rare different situation where the public access easement actually goes over two single-family lots, and the road's been stubbed part of the way. And so we have worked with those two individual owners, and our developer has said, if you want us to replat your lots and put that public access easement on an outlot, like the main lot is, that we would pay for that. They are comfortable just extending the road and doing what we have in order. And so as we progress through the process, we soon discovered that what Mr. Ott wanted wasn't really what our client wanted. And the one key element there was that Mr. Ott wanted this new development to become part of his bigger overall association of what was originally Black Forest and then the new Black Forest. And there's a very good reason why our developer didn't want to do that, because all HOAs are generally set up that the developer has a majority vote until he basically sells the last lot. And so that meant he was going to be able to dictate some things on this development. We didn't want to do that. So we began working with the 14 homeowners that live on Black Forest. That's the only area we're going to drive. We're not going to drive through, and they've done public roads over in this section of it. So those 14 homeowners have an LLC that they take their funds specifically for the cost to improve the road, and they put it in that LLC, and that LLC makes payments to contractors. And so we worked with them. They maintain their detention cell. They've got other costs that they run a different way. But they have a separate LLC entity that they use for the road stuff. And so we began working with them, and in a very easy, short order, once they got us the information on what was your average road cost over the past 10, 15, 20 years, we worked that out on a per lot basis, and there is a signed agreement with them filed at the Register of Deeds dictating that these new 9 lot owners will make a contribution to that road. So we feel like we've gone above and beyond. To the planning department's recollection, they've never had any developer make a contribution to a private road if they didn't live on it. When they developed this, they knew it was a private road in perpetuity. You're in charge of eternal maintenance. So we feel like we've gone actually above and beyond, to be quite honest. And those 14 homeowners all signed this document. Well, they're the president of the LLC signed this document on their behalf. Those homeowners are all happy. Our developer's happy. And so I would be happy to answer any questions you have, but we think that we have done more than we needed to do. We could have said, no, thank you, we're gonna just, and we could have said, no, we're just gonna drive over it, because there is a public access easement over it. This is one thing that the planning department really preaches hard right now, and has for several years. When you choose to do a private road, you have to understand what that undertaking is. And that undertaking is that you have perpetual maintenance of it. And there was a stub connection. The 4 lots he spoke about to the adjacent property, that was just the concept plan that's done when you have to go beyond the borders of that original CUP to say, what if? Nothing in writing, nothing committed. Planning spoke to that. We get a title commitment on this property. There was nothing saying you get restricted to 4 lots. We could actually do 14 lots. We're only doing 9 lots. We could do 14 lots by the size of the lots we need to, if we came through with a preliminary plat. We're doing a community unit plan because we asked for 2 waivers for smaller internal side yards and smaller front yards internal. Those are all to keep the houses interior to the street more, to protect all the trees that abut the Pheasant Run on one side and Black Forest on the other. So just another detail there, that we are actually under density by what we could do by right. We are not asking for a change of zone. R1 is a change of zone. We're staying with that. We've made a commitment to the neighbors. We put it in writing. We filed it at the Register of Deeds. We'll be making contributions. So yes, they have the right to revisit that every 10 years with those 14 homeowners on Black Forest Drive. Okay. And I'm sure that when they become good neighbors with each other, they will do that. So with that said, I would be happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, council, what questions do we have? Councilwoman Washington.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Eckert, thank you for explaining. You may have already inferred it, but I just want to ask the question, for how long is the agreement the new homeowners have with the existing LLC?
It is for 10 years, and then they have the right to meet with these 9 homeowners, assuming it's all sold out by 10 years, meet with those 14 homeowners and decide, do we want to redo this? Do we want to contribute? Do you want to contribute to continue? Or here's more capital expenditures, you know, that need to be made. The agreement also went into detailing common snow removal, common garbage carrier. So, I mean, I think in the 10 years, they'll probably renegotiate it. Rob's not wrong. It's a small amount. It's not a huge amount for the value of what these homes will be. But the principle of the matter is that we have done something, and we worked with those people who were willing to work with us.
Okay, and one more question. The road that you're extending into the new development, is that going to be a private road with a public easement or a public road?
It will be the new road into the development. So this is going to be a little awkward, but it's been done in town before,
Okay,
where their private roadway ends with a public access easement. From there, we will create a public road.
so tell me how it works with snow removal.
Well,
you talked about
yes.
having a common agreement about snow removal.
Technically, the city is to do snow removal on public streets.
Yeah.
So they may have to, in meeting with Steve, who'd spoke with LTU, Steve Henderson in planning, they said if they got to just drive in there and drop the blade once they get past the property line, then that's what they'll do. So, but our people are also contributing to the snow removal on the private portion. So,
And will you have sidewalks?
yeah, we will. And then we're going to create sidewalks on the stub Pin Oak Drive off of that so that there's pedestrian access. But ours will look like every other public street with sidewalks on both sides.
Thank you.
Any other questions, council?
I'll just make a comment that you've done your homework on this.
Well, yes, it was, you know, seemed a pretty benign project. Let's put R1 density next to R1 density, and we knew the private roadway was going to be a sensitive issue, and so we've made a commitment. We've diverted our heavy traffic, and I think there's a good relationship between our client and those 14 members. And the agreement also speaks to, you know, if there's something done where there's specific damages, it can be traced back to our project and they'll contribute. So I feel like we've got a great deal with those 14 homeowners.
Any other questions, council? Appreciate it, thank you. Yeah. Councilwoman, did you have questions for staff still?
I did. Perhaps LTU?
Liz Elliott, Director of LTU, 555 South 10th Street.
Thank you, Director Elliott. Let's talk a little bit about snow removal on public streets when they have to cross private streets, and cul-de-sacs are, I think all of us get emails from constituents about snow removal in cul-de-sacs. So would you tell me how you envision this working out?
Yeah, so we have other places where private streets cross over our city streets, and so you know, sometimes if it's a really short and it's just crossing the street, we don't pick up the plow, we just clear that portion of the private street. Oftentimes, just as was explained, we will just pick up and make sure we're only on a public street for those. Cul-de-sacs, right, it is an art to clear the snow out of there because unlike other places, there's really no place to put it. There's houses all the way around, so each cul-de-sac's a little different, but we do work with our contractors. Usually it's our contractors that are in the residentials before our large snow plows. So we've worked with them, and the ones that have been doing it the last several years are getting that mastered. And so it's just, we work in each area is a little different, so we kind of work through, ooh, that didn't work, let's move the snow this way differently. So that's just something we talk about annually and as we learn in each new area with new cul-de-sacs. So we'll continue to do that and treat it like any other place, but having public and private cross, this isn't the only place in town where that happens, so we do work with that area.
All right. And when you were looking at the access off of Old Cheney, did you consider keeping the original driveway and making that the
I'd have to go.
road for the whole thing?
I wasn't part of those conversations early, so I'd have to go back and make sure that the history of that, we do try to make sure that access points are within our access management guidelines. Sometimes when there are existing, we're able to use those, but otherwise, sometimes they're just too close to the next access point or too far away. So not always do we allow that, but that is something that we do look at is where's the existing, how closely does that match our access management, and can we make it work? So I'd have to go back and go to the history of those conversations since I wasn't part of it, but that's typically how those conversations go.
Yeah, thank you.
Council, other questions? Councilman Weber.
I would have a question for Director Carey.
David Carey, Director of Planning and Development Services, 555 South 10th Street.
Thank you, Director. So I'm by no means an expert when it comes to private roads, right? So I just want to make sure I understand the issue we have in front of us. We have the Mr. Ott, who's making appeal, saying that there is that this is an issue of fairness and that there's minimal contribution, right, to this private roadway. And then the response by the applicant, Mr. Ecker, is that even if it's not fair, they're going above and beyond, and they're not required to even contribute, with it being an issue of fairness, as Mr. Ott points out. Is that an accurate summary of why we're here today? And if so, what is the position held by the planning department when it comes to private roadways, generally speaking?
Yes, so to answer the first question, that is an accurate portrayal of kind of how we got to this point. It is accurate to say that there is no regulation or requirement for any type of contribution or private agreement to work with other potentially impacted homeowners that are on a private road that are next door to a newer development. And I would agree that the developer, as Mr. Eckert said, they have done more than what is required in this type of situation. It's also accurate to say that the homeowner association and Mr. Ott have that right to appeal this action by the Planning Commission. So that's why we're here today. Mm-hmm. For the second part of your question, I think in an ideal world we wouldn't have private road then public road. Mm-hmm. But in this situation, getting back a little bit to what was asked of Director Elliott, it's good city policy to remove some of those access points on an arterial street when the opportunity arises, and that is the opportunity that we have with this. And what I would say further is that, as the applicant was explaining in his testimony, that stub road has been there for a very long time now, and the expectation has been and should be that it would be connected to some type of future development at some point. And that's, when we look at it from a planning perspective, that is good follow through on kind of how things have been set up, and that it also allows for an opportunity to do infill and redevelopment. In this case, there'll be very, higher end, lots and houses, but it still is infill and development of an existing piece of property that is a better use of the land.
Thank you. That answers my question. I appreciate it.
Council, other questions? for Director Carey? No. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this? If so, please come forward now. Seeing none, if the appellate or the applicant, if we call that applicant, would like to make a rebuttal, they're welcome to now also. Mr. Eckert, rebuttal, or Mr. Ott? No? Okay. All right. Just want to allow adequate time. Seeing no more, we can go ahead and proceed.
I'll go ahead and I'll call item 5B, approving the service subscription agreement between the City of Lincoln on behalf of Lincoln Transportation and Utilities and Arrigo Software Technologies, Inc. for renewal of subscription for a 4-year term with the option to renew for 1 additional year.
Liz Elliott, Director of Lincoln Transportation Utilities, 555 South 10th. This is a contract for a software program that we've had for the last about 10 years now. This really is our construction management software, so it's used by our streets and water teams, not necessarily wastewater, but for the bulk of our projects. It's a system where our inspectors and our project managers go in, make daily notes. This is how we process our pay applications, and we just are able to track all of the project costs and how the project's progressing. So it's been working. We've actually made some additional improvements to it to be more automated with the pay applications to connect with our city's financial system, E1. And so we're just finding additional benefits using the software. So that's why we're going with a 4-year contract plus 1-year renewal. So would ask for your approval of this, but happy to answer any questions.
Council, any questions? All right.
Thank you.
Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item 5B? If so, please come forward now. Seeing none, we can proceed.
We can now vote on these items. Item 5A is appealed by Robert Ott on behalf of Black Forest Homeowners Association, a special permit 26010 to allow for the Willowmere Forest Estates Community Unit Plan on property located at 6400 Old Cheney Road, introduced by Shope.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? And just for clarification on this, is Johansi here too?
This is the approval.
Yeah, is the yes vote, a yes vote would be in support of the appeal?
So when an item like this has come to you on appeal, you're acting on the project. So it's yes, approve the project, no, deny the project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, please call the roll.
Weber,
Yes.
Shobe,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Item 5B is approving the service subscription agreement between the City of Lincoln on behalf of Lincoln Transportation and Utilities and Arrigo Software Technologies, Inc. for renewal of subscription for a 4-year term with the option to renew for 1 additional year, introduced by Shobe.
So moved.
Second by Duden. Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bowers,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Shobe,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. That concludes section 5 of our agenda. We'll move on to section 6, public hearing ordinances, second reading and related resolutions. I'll call item 6A. Item 6A is amending the pay schedule for the employee group whose classifications are assigned to the pay range prefixed by the letter A by creating the classification cybersecurity analyst.
All right. Welcome, Director.
Good afternoon. Carl Steffen, City Information Services, 949 West Bond. I guess I don't know if I'm looking for questions, if you're looking for explanation from me, or...
Yeah, just an explanation would be great, and then we'll ask questions.
So,
if we have
to date, the City of Lincoln has had only one position classification related to cybersecurity called the Information Security Officer. In modern times, there are there are many more different classifications for cybersecurity professionals. We have a couple folks that are pulling that role today, and they are generically called network administrators, which isn't an accurate description of the role. It makes filling those positions a little bit interesting when you get the applicants that are applying for network administrator roles. And the compensation is also not quite the same. So we wanted to create 2 new classifications and reposition a couple existing employees into those positions.
Okay, great. Council, any questions?
Make a comment.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. I'll just say that the city's got to stay with the program here when it comes to updating for these new positions as technology emerges at the same time. So this is just terrible to everybody else.
That's the goal. Maybe a step ahead of some. Maybe.
Okay. Council, other questions? All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any member of the public that would like to comment? If so, please come forward now. Welcome.
My name is Michael Henry, MICHAELHENRY, 2801 South Street. I should point out that I'm an employee for the state of Nebraska, and I'm a member of the Nebraska Association of Public Employees, the labor union there. And so I have a little bit of experience about related to shuffling job classifications and trying to find a way to focus people's work on the work that they should be doing and what you need them to do. I'm not actually speaking for the state or the union at this point, but I would like to put some context on this. We're just now barely 2 years past the Change Healthcare ransomware attack, which basically sent the healthcare industry into a tailspin for at least a year. Probably we're still digging out of it in some ways. Change Healthcare is a massive information data warehouse that collects all sorts of information about insurance, medical procedures, providers, the whole thing. So there was the big identity theft problem. It spilled out into claims processing. So where I work, we couldn't get our job done. And I just want to kind of applaud the city for thinking forward this way, because this kind of thing, the Change Healthcare attack, other ransomware attacks, other hacks even that aren't involving ransomware, it's going to get worse. It's only going to get worse as time goes on. And so getting out ahead of this, as the director said and as Councilor Dude noted, it's very important. And I just wanted to kind of applaud the city for doing that. I'm definitely in favor of this resolution.
Great, appreciate it. Thanks for your testimony. Is there any other member of the public like to comment on this item? If so, please come forward now. Seeing none, we can proceed.
I'll call item 6B, text amendment 26006, request of AMVN exchange to amend Lincoln Municipal Code section 27.72.020, height and lot regulations R1 through R8 zoning districts by amending paragraph C, exceptions to the minimum lot requirements residential, subparagraph 5, to clarify the existing structures may be converted or used as 2-family dwellings in the R1 and R2 residential zoning districts.
Rex McKeeman, a representative on behalf of AMVN Exchange, 122 North 11th Street, Suite 200. So we own a property at 1745 D Street. We have a desire to renovate and convert that property into a duplex to be able to rent it out. We're requesting an amendment to this text that would allow us to achieve that goal. The current language allows 2-family dwellings to be erected in certain locations within the R1 and R2 zoning districts, implying that structures must be newly built, but this amendment would change the wording to used. This change of wording would clarify that existing structures may be converted or used as a 2-family dwelling, rather than requiring that the structure must be newly constructed. Thank you.
All right. Council, questions? for the applicant? Appreciate it. Thank you. Is there any member of the public like to comment on this item 6B? If so, please come forward now. 6B. Seeing none, we can proceed. No? Okay. Seeing none, we can proceed then.
Okay. I'll call item 6C, amending Title 9 of the Lincoln Municipal Code relating to public peace and welfare by creating a new chapter 9.80 entitled Lincoln Minimum Wage Ordinance to adopt a minimum wage ordinance.
Councilman Bowers.
Let's get started for the main event of the night. Want to start off by saying happy birthday to my beautiful mother sitting in the back who turned 71 on Thursday. She's a regular attendee of council meetings, and she keeps me in line.
And our favorite Bowers.
That's true, and
Yeah.
the favorite Bowers. maybe she'll run to take over for me. So thanks so much, everyone, for coming out. And just want to kick off by saying, in 2022, Nebraska voters made a clear decision. They approved Initiative 433, raising the minimum wage to $15 by 2026 and tying future increases to the cost of living. That measure passed with nearly 60% of the vote statewide and nearly 70% of the vote in Lincoln. And it's worth pausing on that. This measure passed with a broader margin and stronger consensus than many of the elected officials who later voted to overturn it. After a multi-year effort to weaken it, the Nebraska legislature passed LB 258 in 2026. And that bill replaced the voter-approved cost of living adjustment with a capped annual increase and created a youth minimum wage, allowing employers to pay young workers less. Nebraskans voted to raise the wage, not cap it. They voted to protect workers from losing purchasing power, and they did not vote to create a lower wage for younger workers. And voters have said this before. In 2014, they approved raising Nebraska's minimum wage to $9 an hour, and in 2022 went further and said the wage should be increased annually. Earlier this week, I had a conversation with someone about our community values. And in a community where not everyone has access to healthcare, where school lunch is not guaranteed, and where tuition continues to rise, and where families are stretched thin, why would policymakers respond by making it even harder for young workers who are helping their families, paying bills, saving for school, and building their own future? As a social worker, I have worked with young people who are responsible for caring for younger siblings, helping pay rent, and putting food on the table. Pretending that all youth workers are just earning extra spending money ignores the reality of many families in our community. Creating a sub-minimum wage for workers does more than pay teenagers less. It resets the floor of what minimum means and opens the door to justifying lower wages for other workers too. Reasonable people can disagree about wage policy. That debate is not new. But in this case, voters already heard those arguments. They had access to the pros and the cons, and they made that decision at the ballot box. So at this point, this is not just an economic argument. It's a question of whether voters' votes matter. The legislature did not simply fine-tune a policy. They overturned what voters clearly approved, despite that decision carrying broader support than many of the lawmakers themselves, and went a step further by creating a separate lower class of wages for younger workers. Opponents have said we need to do our homework. That's dismissive, not just of this council, but of voters overall. It suggests that this disagreement only comes from ignorance or a lack of diligence rather than a difference in judgment. We've done the research and we didn't reach the same conclusion, and the people have made their will clear. This ordinance restores what nearly 60% of Nebraskans and nearly 70% of Lincolnites approved in 2022. It protects fair wages for workers in Lincoln, and just as importantly, it protects the principle that when people go to the ballot box, their votes should matter. Today, we'll hear directly from the public of all ages about how this proposal affects their lives, their work, and their families, and what it means to have their vote respected, and what we should value as a city, and a reminder of the power of the ballot box. Thank you.
All right. And is that the motion then, correct?
Now we have the
County Clerk? Public hearing then? Okay, sure, thank you. All right, is there any member of the public like to comment on this item? 6C, if so, please come forward now. And we do have 2 microphones on either side, so feel free to line up if you'd like a little bit too. I think we'll have a full crowd here. All right. I think you're up first, if you'd like to go ahead and begin.
I am Jean McGuire, 7715 Fairs Drive. I am speaking on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Lincoln, Lancaster County, P.O. Box 5054, 68505. In 2022, members of the League of Women Voters collected petition signatures in support of a ballot initiative to establish a minimum wage statute known as Initiative Measure 433. The voters approved this measure. Our support was grounded in the League's national position on social policy and meeting basic human needs, which affirms that social policy should promote self-sufficiency for individuals and families. We believe the most effective social programs are those designed to prevent or reduce poverty, and this measure represents meaningful progress towards that goal. The League of Women Voters of Lincoln Lancaster County supports the proposed ordinance to maintain the wage standards approved by the voters, Nebraska voters in 2022, and we encourage the Lincoln City Council to pass this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. And I should say, we'll be here until everyone speaks too. So if you do want to have a seat too, there's no need necessarily to stand up in the line unless you want to be one of the first ones. Thank you. We'll go over here. Thank you.
Mark LaRue, Executive Director of Schools, Christ Lincoln, 4325 Sumner Street and 6700 Chatsworth Lane. Good afternoon, members of the City Council. I'm here today to speak in opposition to the proposed to change the minimum wage increase annually from the legislator's established rate of 1.75% to the rate tied to inflation. Christ Lincoln Schools currently serves 189 children in our child care programs across 2 campuses. Of those, 10 children receive state subsidy support, and 8 additional families rely on scholarships through Lincoln Littles. We have faithfully served this community for over 20 years at our Sumner campus and expanded 6 years ago to Southeast Lincoln. In addition, we operate an elementary school program serving 173 students, where approximately 1/3 of families receive some support of financial scholarships. While we deeply value staff and the essential role they play, the recent increase to a 15 minimum wage has created significant financial pressure on our program. Since 2023, we have increased wages by approximately 25% to ensure equity across all staff levels, not just the entry level positions. As a result, we've also had to increase tuition on an average of 10% year over year to sustain operations. Our child care program is not designed to generate profit. It exists to serve families. However, continued increases tied to inflation without consideration of the financial realities faced by child care providers will place additional strain on programs like ours. Child care has been widely recognized as both essential and fragile. Here in Lincoln, roughly a dozen centers have closed in recent years. Increasing the rate of minimum wage growth risks accelerating that trend. The result will be fewer available options and rising costs, placing quality child care further out of reach for many families. If this proposal moves forward, centers like ours will have no choice but to pass those increased costs onto families who are going to get the additional increase in their wages, making child care unattainable for some and limiting access to only those with greater financial means. I urge you to carefully consider the impact on providers, families, and children and reject this proposal in its current form. Thank you for your consideration.
All right, thank you.
Hello. I'm Carol Mathias, CarolMathias. And I appreciate the time today to talk about Councilman Bauer's efforts to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. The advocates for this motion can be broken down into 4 categories. 1, increasing wages lifts citizens out of poverty. 2, economic stimulus happens when more money is in the pocket of the consumer. 3, improved productivity and worker retention happens in the workforce as it decreases absenteeism and turnover. And 4, The electorate of this city, as well as the state, overwhelmingly voted for this. I taught economics to high schoolers for 35 years. Data is important. Data tells a story. And the story I have today is comparing Lincoln to Springfield, Illinois. Springfield is also a state capital like Lincoln. Springfield has a strong connection between government, agriculture, and history. Its economy revolves around stable jobs in government, medicine, and education. Differences? Lincoln has 200,000 more citizens in our community. In 2025, Springfield raised their minimum wage to $15. What was the worker impact in this short term of time? Approximately 22,700 workers in Springfield's region were directly affected by the hike to $15. Second, economic activity. A $15 minimum wage was estimated to boost the Illinois economy by over $380 million in tax revenue, as well as reducing the number of residents in poverty. This data, by the way, is from the Illinois Economic Policy Institute. Now, in the short period of time that this has been enacted, job growth grew 0.8% compared to 1.4% nationally, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And the ability of smaller businesses to absorb these higher costs did result in some slower job growth. But the Illinois Economic Policy Institute noted that with higher wages, workers were working less hours and thus making more room for more hires. The U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis has noted a 1.25% increase in the GDP for Springfield and the surrounding area from 2025. But whether that was from higher wages, the creating more consumption, and how much was in the fourth quarter inflation creeping in to these numbers. We need more time to know what drove that increase. This is an effect on a community of just 114,000. The boost that could happen for Lincoln with our 200,000 extra people would be significant. So, in conclusion, higher wages does mean more consumption. On Friday, I spoke to a high schooler about what $15 means in his life. And he talked about that $15 meant that he could save for his community college education in the future and the hopes of buying a used car next year. He also shared with me that there are a number of his friends that turn over a significant part of their paychecks to their families to help in these uncertain economic times. A lesson that I always emphasized to my students when I taught monetary and fiscal policy was that for the people like you, sitting in the positions that you do, that have to make the decisions that you do, you rarely see instant results. It takes months, years, sometimes decades, to know the decisions that you make today were the right decisions. And I want to say that I fully respect that. I'd also have to close with this following statement so that my former students know this is me talking. I have to do a quote from the father of capitalism, Adam Smith, who wrote about the wisdom of allowing people to decide what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. The voters spoke conclusively in 2022, and I'd urge the council to lead by enacting the will of the voters and raising the minimum wage to $15 to increase consumption and investment in our community. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I just also want to say Ms. Mathias was my economics teacher at Northeast High School, so once a rocket, always a rocket.
And do you still have a paper I'm waiting for?
Probably.
All right, we'll begin over here.
My name is Eric Ryder, and I'm here today on behalf of Voices for Children in Nebraska. For nearly 40 years, our organization has worked to elevate the voices of children and youth and to advance public policies that ensure all young people can grow up safe, healthy, and supported in their communities. It is in that spirit that we are here in support of the Lincoln Minimum Wage Ordinance, which would establish the voter-approved minimum wage for the city of Lincoln without carve-outs based on age. Our concern with recent state action, particularly LB 258, is its impact on young workers. The reality is that young people in our community are not working for extra spending money. They're working to meet basic needs. Many are helping pay for groceries, transportation, and housing. Some are supporting themselves, and others are contributing to their families. For these young workers, wages are not about convenience, they are about survival. Consider housing. A full-time minimum wage worker cannot afford a one-bedroom rental at fair market rates. While affordable rent would need to be closer to $600 a month, average rents are nearing $900 a month. That gap means a worker would need more than one full-time job just to keep up, before even accounting for food, transportation, or health care. Lowering wages for young workers only makes these challenges more severe. This ordinance takes a different approach. It recognizes the value of all workers and ensures that wages reflect the real cost of living in our community, regardless of age. That matters not just for young people today, but for the long-term stability of families in Lincoln. It's also important to note that Nebraska voters have already made their voices clear. They overwhelmingly supported increasing the minimum wage without age-based exceptions. This ordinance aligns with that intent and ensures that local policy reflects the will of the people. All families deserve the opportunity to thrive, and economic security is foundational to that goal. By supporting this ordinance, you are investing in the well-being of young people and helping to build a stronger, more stable future for Lincoln. We respectfully urge the council to approve this ordinance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. I am Elizabeth Engman, and I am a senior community organizer at Nebraska Appleseed. My boss, Ken Smith, was originally going to be here, but he is expecting a baby any moment now, so he is staying in Omaha for the time being. At Nebraska Appleseed, we are a nonprofit law and policy organization that works for justice and opportunity for all Nebraskans. We support this proposed ordinance because it restores important wage protections for Lincolnites. In 2022, Nebraskans voted to update our wage laws in two significant ways. The first was to gradually increase our state's minimum wage so that by January 1st, 2026, Nebraska's wage floor for all workers would be $15 per hour. Second, the voters installed annual adjustments so that wages would increase to keep up with the cost of living. This is measured by looking at the year-over-year percentage change to the Consumer Price Index and then adjusting our minimum wage accordingly. Unfortunately, this past session, the Nebraska legislature passed a bill that undermines the core purpose of the voter-approved initiative and rolls back important wage protections. The legislation makes two harmful changes to our state wage laws. First, it caps the annual wage adjustments at just 1.75%, and that's compared to an average annual change of about 3.9%, so quite significant, which means the minimum wage will once again fail to keep pace with increases in the cost of living. Second, it created some minimum wage for certain youth workers, which not only creates inequity in the workplace, where employees doing the same job are paid differently, it also ignores the reality that for many workers, their income is a vital resource for themselves and their families, as has been previously mentioned. This proposal allows Lincoln to restore the important wage protections the legislature just stripped away. It makes it clear that youth workers should be included with the rest of the workforce in being guaranteed a fair wage, and it eliminates the legislature's harmful wage adjustment cap so that Lincoln's wage floor can be adjusted to keep pace with the ever-increasing cost of living. Nearly 60% of Nebraska voters supported these protections, as did 70% of Lincoln voters, which I know has been said, but a very important thing to reiterate. Those are pretty significant numbers of support for this policy. While Lincoln is generally regarded as a relatively affordable place to live, we know that is not the reality for thousands of families in our community. Almost 40,000 Lincolnites are living below the poverty line, with nearly 1 in 5 Lincoln families spending more than 30% of their income on housing costs alone. While there is more work to be done to ensure everyone in our community can meet their needs, restoring these important wage protections is a meaningful step to take. We thank Councilman Bowers for his leadership in bringing this proposal, and we urge the council to support it. Thank you.
Thanks. Welcome.
Hello. My name is Mike Gage, Mikegage, 7612 West Rio Road, Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm the President, Secretary, Treasurer of the Nebraska State AFL-CIO. If created by this body, Chapter 9.80 Lincoln Minimum Wage Ordinance would rectify, at least in Lincoln, the legislature's misinterpretation or simply ignoring the will of the voters on Nebraska Initiative 433. Public comments on LB 258 were 296 proponents and 5 opponents. In Lincoln, the ballot initiative passed with 67% approval. Rarely do we witness a less ambiguous display of public approval. I commend Councilman Bowers on behalf of Nebraska workers of all ages for proposing this ordinance. If adopted, it would eliminate the perception of the second-class citizens of our younger citizens as second-class workers, while simultaneously making a positive impact on their belief in our system of government. I urge the members of this council to adopt this amendment. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
My name is Roger Lemke, 2501 North 74th Street here in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I'm here to try to speak out on behalf of our veteran population. As you know, I retired from the National Guard several years ago and then went on to work for Senator Johans and Senator Fisher, where I had the chance to deal very directly with veterans in need. And you get an understanding about the economic conditions that they face and the problems that they face. Many of our veterans that are on disability, they have a disability payment, which is COLA at the federal level. They have Social Security, and they usually get it at the minimum level because they need the money as soon as they can. Again, that's COLA. But then if they're also working to sustain the rest of the income that they need to sustain their lifestyle, then things change. And you can see that dealing with a veteran back around 2011, 2012, and then coming back several years later and working with them again, it's difficult for them to keep up with inflation and changes. And they have very few alternatives available to them. They can try to get extra work if they're physically capable or something like that. So to me, it's critical that $15 an hour that with a COLA to it will help them to sustain that level they need to survive as a citizen following their service to our country. One comment that was I found that the Chamber of Commerce had made, they considered the COLA increase to be supporting ways to increase the standard of living for residents. And I've heard that comment from others. But I would say that in some cases it's needed to simply sustain the level that they're at now and to sustain that going forward, because otherwise they don't have other resources available to them. The other issue I want to bring up is personal. I've got 11 grandkids, and they've all been through the process. And this idea that you should pay a teenager less for having the energy and the will to go out and work is, to me, simply ridiculous. Number one, in today's world with teenagers, it's different than it was several years ago. You have gap years now where they decide to work for a while. You have those that are in the younger age groups that are needed to support their parents and family, and they need to go enter the workforce to do that, as well as going to school. And we think we need to be more understanding of today's world versus 10, 15, 20 years ago. And let me just bring this up. So their initial experience, we talk about stay in Nebraska. And their initial experience is, well, they start work and they get a reduced wage. So there's an impression that's going to stay. And so instead of encouraging them to stay in Nebraska, they might decide to move on. And I might just point out that when you look at other states around us, some already have 15 with COLAs. Some are less than 15 but still have COLAs. So most of the states around us do have the COLA opportunity. So I would highly encourage you to, based on these examples, to consider what Congressman
Not yet.
Commissioner
Not yet.
Bowers is recommending. And finally, comment. We've got National Guard forces right now all over the world protecting our democracy. A key to that democracy is what we, the people, vote and want our leaders to do. And so it's important for that reason that you also consider very strongly here accomplishing the will of the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, General.
Charles Veneman, V as in Victory, ENNEMAN, 5628 Huntington Avenue, Apartment 1. I'm here in support of this. I have a 14-year-old daughter who just started a new job, her first one ever. It makes me furious that people would believe her time is worth less than someone doing the same job as she is. They're doing exactly the same thing, and just because of her age, it's worth less. Also, you know, I voted for this. We all voted for this. And I believe we're here because Senator Raybould chose to protect her business ventures instead of the voice of the voters. And I am quite angry about that. So that's what I have.
Great, thank you. Hello, welcome.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Varela, and I am here with the Lincoln Lancaster Youth Advisory Council. I am their chair. I'm here today in support of James Bowers' ordinance for the minimum wage. Firstly, I'd like to say that I really appreciate what you're doing here. And every family situation is different, as you said. But in reality, a lot of the youth population does get jobs to help their families. I am lucky enough to not have been in that situation. But when people say that I work just to go out, have fun, that is definitely not why I work. Actually, I'm more at work than I am having fun outside. I do pay for my own gas, my insurance, my phone bill, my laptop, a lot of other things. I help with my little brother. So there is things that I do need to pay for. And I started working when it was, I believe, $13 when I started working 2 years ago. And I work cashier and I work in the back, so I'm double trained. And I work and I go to school full time. So I get up 7 a.m., go to school, and then 5 o'clock, I go clock in to work, get off at, depends on the day, 11:45, 10:45, depends on the day. But many adults do work a 9 to 5. I work, in my opinion, more like unreasonable hours, which in the afternoon. But I mean, you do what you do. And I honestly don't remember the last time I closed with an adult. I closed with mostly students, which is kind of crazy to me at that hour of night. But my boss has told me countless times, again and again, that I am his best and most valuable employee in front. Not the best, one of the best. Because I have a lot of good coworkers with me. So not the best.
Yeah, because you got to go back to work there.
Yeah. But my question is, why should I get punished for doing the same amount of work, if not more, while going to school? Just because of my age. I am doing the same amount of work, if not both, front and back, with a lot of the adults only being trained in one area. So just because of my age doesn't mean my labor is any less valuable. So thank you. Oh, I was told to say that Kwame says hi. So I told him I was coming today, and I told him I'd say hi to you. So thank you guys for your time.
All right, thanks for coming down. Thank you.
Hi. My name is Mariana Ponce. I'm 16 years old, and I'm a vice chair from the Youth Advisory Council from Lancaster County. I'm here to voice my opinion for the youth of Lincoln in support for the minimum age ordinance by James Bowers. Prices are rising, and the wages are staying still. And if wages are being lowered for us, the youth, we won't be able to afford anything, because 13 is not enough. might seem like young people don't need money as much as adults, but we do need a lot of money, not just for personal stuff, but also to support our parents. I'm lucky enough to also not have the trouble of having to work for my parents, but many people who have divorced, sick, or elderly parents might need that to support themselves and siblings, any other family member, because they might be the primary income or the secondary income in their house. And as young as 15-year-olds are already helping with rent. They might also pay for school, even in high school, not just college. So fast food and retail works are mostly driven by youth. So it shows that we really have a responsibility in many establishments. And it's not fair that we get paid less for doing the same work as an adult. And even we work more because we also have school and work. Thank you.
Thanks for coming down. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sam Washburn, 1040 Y Street, and I'm here in support of James Bauer's ordinance. I'd like to start out by saying that I have been working since sophomore year of high school, and currently I'm a junior in college. Currently I work 15 hours a week, and I want to talk about some issues that, well, you've heard about today, but I don't think are echoed enough, which is brain drain and being a paycheck away from poverty. Right now, I have more friends that I can count on my hand that are a paycheck away from poverty. Friends that are in the same situations as me, who are on the same age and work the same jobs. I have a friend who just had foot surgery and has to go into work in a cast. He has to go into work because if he doesn't, he would be fired. And I have friends who want to leave Nebraska because they see their voter initiatives being rejected by the unicameral. Voter initiatives with nearly 70% wanting minimum wage increases that are being rejected. If you want Nebraskan workers to stay, you need to support them. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Cora Jones, Corajones. I'm 16 years old, and I'm speaking in support of this ordinance on behalf of New Voices, 7601 Pacific Street, based in Omaha, though I am a Lincoln resident. New Voices is a youth-led, nonpartisan civic engagement organization that works to expand democratic participation across Nebraska and represent youth interests in civic spaces like these. Nebraska's legislature has recognized that the federal minimum wage is not enough, and if I'm being honest, it's kind of hypocritical of them to reduce wages just because a worker is below age. At New Voices, we represent youth voices, and I can say with certainty and experience that teens deserve the same minimum wage as adults. 34 states and the District of Columbia have youth minimum wage exceptions similar to the one in place right now, but as I watched my friends work 2 jobs just to make up for low wages, financial struggles, or in hopes of affording higher education, I want to urge Lincoln to recognize the need to pass this ordinance. I have friends with incarcerated parents or parents who plainly refuse to support their child's ambitions or anything that isn't an essential need, and by giving younger workers the ability to work full minimum wage, you give autonomy back to myself and my peers. As I watch some of my own autonomy be placed on trial every day across the nation, I can tell you that every ordinance counts towards my personal freedom and my sense of being truly represented in legislation. In my personal belief, there is no argument for lower quality labor from teenagers. The same can be said for a 22-year-old at their first job ever. Supporters of youth sub-minimum wage have claimed that young people will be denied job opportunities under higher minimum wage, but research from UC Berkeley has shown that higher minimum wages don't have a meaningful impact on teen employment. In fact, an analysis of Maine's 2018 youth sub-minimum wage bill by the Maine Center for Economic Policy estimated that 27% of youth who would have been impacted by youth sub-minimum wage were already living at or below the poverty line. There is no difference in need for wages between teenagers and adults. Teenagers support households financially, they support themselves financially, and so I wanted to say that in times like these, New Voices and myself personally urge the Lincoln City Council to do what's right with the best interest of all of their constituents in mind and support fair minimum wage for everyone.
Thank you.
I'm Dale Williamson. I live at 5315 Thies Cove Drive here in Lincoln. Tomorrow I'm going to a school and along with another 10 Quanians, and we pass out food through the food bank and school program. It's terrific. And we have probably 300 people in line. And those kids smile, they thank us, they need the food, and sometimes they even give us a hand bump, but we probably shouldn't do that, but they're so appreciative. And we're going to another school. We go to 2 schools every month. Now, although we have some interaction with the kids, we have no interaction with the parents because they're not there. But you can imagine what's happening in that family. No doubt maybe the parents can only have a one-person work because they have kids, and maybe that person is just getting a little over the minimum wage. The person isn't getting a livable wage. We have to have livable wages and make that work in that way. So it's the young people here have greatly described their need for where we should stand with this. And all I would say in closing, it's a privilege to live in Lincoln, where we look forward, look at these things, try to do the right thing. The ordinance is timely for affordability. Thank you.
Thanks, Dale.
Afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name is Lincoln Zare. I represent the Lincoln Independent Business Association. My address is 4921 South 76th. The first name is pretty obvious. The last name is Z-E-H-R. I feel like a little bit like Don Quixote here, and James, I apologize, but the reality of it is I am here representing our members today, and we have heard from them, and we have heard from them loudly, and we have heard from them consistently. Raising the minimum wage is often I'll have these statements and I will provide them for you. Often framed as some sort of a straightforward path to improving workers' lives, but the economic evidence shows that mandated wage hikes can create significant, what I would call unintended consequences. Small businesses, especially those who operate on thin margins, are disproportionately affected. While this seems to be an argument about jobs and allowing jobs and teenagers having jobs, the reality of it is it's having an opposite effect. We have heard higher minimum wages increase labor costs, and that forces many small businesses to make staffing decisions. And our members, not one, not two, 10 or more, have shared with us that they have responded to this scenario by reducing part-time positions, that they, particularly those that are held by entry-level people, which aligns with a study that was done by Oxford University, which found that minimum wage increases resulted in about 1.5 fewer employment relationships per firm per year, driven largely by the elimination of low-hour, low-wage jobs typically held by teenagers. Obviously, pressure on small business. I won't belabor this, but tight budgets. We have heard from LEBA members that show that minimum wage hikes are forcing owners to choose between either raising prices and cutting staff hours or accelerating automations, which has an entirely different negative connotations. But I could tell you names of businesses that have risen prices. And the reality of that is it goes completely counter to this idea that we are raising wages to provide an economic ability of people to acquire more, because the actual products that they want to acquire cost more. So higher consumer prices, it does not just increase the wage of the entry-level position. We've heard from business members that say, if I increase this entry-level wage, and I have somebody supervising that person, and all of a sudden that gap moved by $1, $1.50, this person's saying, whoa, wait a minute, that's not fair. And you have this laddering effect that is raising wages across an entire business. And this idea that people say, oh, well, people are going to leave Nebraska because they're going to get a higher wage. Where? Where are you going to go? We have the highest minimum wage of any state around us. We are not Colorado. We are not Illinois. We are not Missouri. We don't have the industries that support those economies, notwithstanding the fact that every single one of those economies has a higher cost of living than the state of Nebraska. The states that we identify with demographically are Iowa and Kansas. We are agricultural. We are ag. Colorado is not ag. Illinois is not ag. California is not ag. Washington is not ag. And yet we are enacting policies that mirror those states. And yet we don't have the economies to support that argument. So, in conclusion, before I raise another issue, which I'm sorry, I apologize. I got a few minutes, 30 seconds. Raising minimum wages, and I understand it. It aims to improve workers' quality of life. I get that. I truly do understand that. I worked since I was 12 years old. Sometimes I worked 2 jobs. So, sorry people, that was a reality back in 1980, still is today. Sometimes you have to work 2 jobs. I worked my way through college, working 30 hours a week at Nebraska Wesleyan. That's life. But the policy, however well intended, is resulting in reduced job opportunities. Obviously, increased prices and it's straining businesses. But I think the point that I want to make here is it's not about businesses like Jane Raybould wanting to make more money off the backs of somebody that's making a minimum wage. We're trying to preserve jobs by preventing those jobs from being eliminated because the business can't afford it.
I have a question.
Oh,
Brody, if you want to go first.
I just have some quick
Go ahead,
questions.
Counsel.
Thank you, Chair Carlson. Mr.
Wait a
Zaire.
minute, nobody else got questions, Brody.
Well,
Come
you know,
on.
as
I'm
someone
kidding.
who worked
I'm
2
joking.
jobs
I'm
to
kidding.
get through law school,
No,
I
I'm
think you
kidding.
made
I'm
some
kidding.
interesting points. So my first question, right, is while I understand some of your points, I think stating Illinois, Colorado, California do not have ag industry is an interesting point. But
Tell me they have the same percentage of ag industry.
well, that's not what I heard in the testimony. But what I wanted to ask you is, with the arguments you had made, how do you wrestle that with it being the will of the voters and not just the city of Lincoln, but the entire state of Nebraska having their voice heard on this issue? Do we just ignore that?
Brody, I'll be honest, that's a question you get to wrestle with more than I do, but I understand your point, and I truly appreciate its significance and its importance.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the way I would answer that question, to the best of my ability, is what I referred to in my very first statement, very first sentence, unintended consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you wanted to find examples throughout history where legislation created unintended consequences, I think it's pretty easy. I don't know that the Nebraska voter would have voted for this had they had the belief or understanding, however you want to say that this ultimately would result in fewer jobs for entry-level positions, and or in other instances where we've seen members testify to us, an elimination of a complete layer of employees.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know how to describe that or explain that, Brody, other than to say I don't think any of us necessarily thought that was going to be the result, and so I think it's naive to say, well, we're just going to blindly follow the will of the people without being cognizant or respectful of the fact that we are hearing this is happening and it wasn't intended. I mean, truly, I believe that the legislation as it was passed was well intended. Please don't, I'm not taking argument with that at all. I'm simply here to represent businesses that are saying, whoa, this is not working out the way we think people thought it would.
So is it your position then that we as policymakers need to protect the Nebraska voter from themselves? Because that's what I hear.
Well, Brody, I guess you would have to say how many times has that happened in Congress, and I think it's happened a lot. I think our The legislation in our country is riddled with examples of that. You can't legislate morality, right? Well, guess what? That's exactly what laws that were designed around morality were protected to, or designed to do, was to protect people from themselves, because they clearly don't know. Now, that was an editorial comment at the end.
No, I
so-
appreciate that. And
so
I
don't wanna
appreciate you
I-
answering my
whoever
questions.
quoted this, I don't want to be quoted as that.
I have just one last question, and I appreciate it. A young woman spoke about how she pays for her gas on her way to her job. Does someone who would be impacted by this minimum wage carve out for their age, do they pay less for their gas or consumer goods?
Okay, Brody, so let's talk about this. Is this a carve-out that perpetually reduces the wage for? It's 90 days, people. It's a 90-day carve-out. Look, you guys know as well as I do, hiring is 50-50 to begin with. You don't know if this person's going to work out or not. So why, and this idea that someone who is 18 years old deserves to make the same as somebody that's 22 years old and was doing the job for 4 years is ludicrous. And these gap year ideas and concepts, these people are not teenagers. Gap years are after college, and they're not teenagers, and it doesn't apply. This is a limited scope carve-out. 90 days, I think if I'm not mistaken, there's a provision that allows it to go to 180 days. But the reality of it is this is not perpetually decreasing the wages. And by the way, I would argue it's not decreasing them at all, because we're simply not increasing them. So it's not a decrease. You can't decrease something that you don't have. But it's 90 days to 180 days. Why are we arguing about this when a business has the right to hire and fire somebody within 90 days anyway? I don't get it. Let the business, when you talk about businesses, free enterprise, operating their business without undue influence or burden from government, let the business decide. They're going to decide anyway whether this employee is working out or not. And let's be honest, if you had a choice between taking somebody that was brand new, a teenager, and somebody else that was doing an equal job, who are you going to take? This person's more experienced. I say that as having been a business owner, and I think business owners would do that. So I realize I'm Don Quixote here, guys. I am jousting windmills, and I'm probably the only person here that is necessarily going to argue against this. I don't represent my opinions. I represent the members of Lincoln Independent Business Association, and I'm representing to you what they're telling me. But Brody, I appreciate your questions.
Yeah, I appreciate the dialogue. Thank you, Chair Carlson.
Thank you. Councilman.
I guess just a couple of quick things I want to clean up on. You mentioned agriculture. Were you aware that agriculture is actually exempted from this because it matches what exemptions happen at the state level?
My point is not so much, James, that agriculture is exempted. It's that it is a predominant economy to Nebraska. And when you want to try and compare states, you have to take that into consideration, that Washington, the state of Washington, is not an agricultural state. They're $17. Illinois has Chicago in it. Massive industry. We don't have that. We don't have anything like that. We have 1.6 million people, or 7, or whatever the economics are. Colorado. Colorado is not an My point, James, is if you're going to compare apples to apples. Don't compare a state that has limited agricultural employment to a state that has massive agricultural employment. You're in two different universes.
So in terms of also comparing other states, you said that Nebraska had the highest statewide minimum wage compared to surrounding states. Missouri actually...
No, we're not the highest. No, we match. I have a map for you. We match. Below us, Kansas,
Well, I believe that you said that we had the highest, and I just wanted to clarify that Missouri also has a 15.
Missouri, Colorado, Illinois have 15.
Mm-hmm.
All those 15. But my point here, guys, is that we're enacting legislation like we're Colorado and like we're Illinois, and we're not. We don't have the industry that those states do. We don't have the wealth that those states do, and we don't have the population that those states do. So I think it's a bit of an unfair comparison. And I
Stop you there because we got a ton of.
I got it. I apologize.
But the other
Sorry.
thing I want to respond to though is also, you said it's only for 90 days, so that's not entirely true. Also, 14 and 15-year-olds would be making this, forever. Until they're 16, 17, 18, 19.
Again.
And that's where that 90 days or 180 days. So just to be very,
and that's fair.
Just to be very clear,
but
on
it's
that.
still not perpetual. It's not forever. There's an end
For 14 and 15-year-olds. It is.
It ends when they're what? Tell me.
When they are no longer 14 and 15.
Okay, so 16. It ends when they're 16. So then they're in the 90-day period and they're up.
And I just also want to echo, this isn't a question because Brody had already asked the question in a much better way. Economic argument aside, right? Like, at what point do we say that we are going to honor the will of the voters? Voters had access to these arguments in 2022. They made this decision. And I think it's a really slippery slope for people to say that it is okay to surgically alter it in this way, when there could be a vote in Lincoln for things that people may not like, and then we make that change all on our own, then we'd be hearing the exact same arguments of we need to honor the will of the people.
Look,
So I think that's a very slippery
I
argument.
don't envy the position y'all are in. Let's be honest, I don't.
I love it because we're able to honor the will of the voters.
But I will also say this, James. I'm also going to say this. When you say that people had access to the same data in 2022, they absolutely did not. We now have 3 years of data from businesses that have reacted to this legislation that tells us something different. So no, I disagree with you entirely. Voters didn't have access to this. That's why it's called an unintended consequence. They didn't know. I didn't know. I would not have anticipated this. I really would not have.
Thank you so much.
So, guys, I appreciate your time. Who do I leave these with?
Madam Clerk.
Thank you very much. I hope somebody else gets questions.
Welcome.
Yes, hello. My name is Sarah Aguirre, Aguirre, and I live at 6030 Lexington Avenue here in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm proud Lincolnite. I've been here my whole life. The issue of affordability in wages is something that I take extremely personally. 13 years ago, I was homeless. I left an abusive situation in order to better take care of my 2 young children. And I am still a single parent raising my 2 kids in our Northeast neighborhood. And I remember so much of what those challenging years, trying to make sure that I could afford childcare for them. By the time I paid childcare and my either rent or my mortgage payment, now that I own my house, when I very first was getting started out, and I was not at a minimum wage job, I was higher than that. I still only had $100 left after that to pay for gas in my car, food for us. We did FoodNet. I didn't qualify for SNAP, and child support enforcement in this state is not that great. So I faced tremendous challenges in order to provide for my children. And it is just in the last few years that I feel like I have a little bit of breathing room with my finances. But I'm well above minimum wage. So if I am struggling, minimum wage workers are struggling even harder than I am. So I am in favor of this ordinance. I'm also here because now my kids are older, and I am the parent of a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old, and lower wages for youth workers is something that it just irks my soul. These young people are saving for cars, college, and to eventually move out on their own. My son thinks he'll move out when he's 18. He has another thing coming. The real world is hard. I can speak to the specific challenge that inflation has had in our own household. Again, I am well above minimum wage. I'm a director of a program at SEC. I'm doing well, but it has still been tremendously hard on our household. And so for our household, for my son to try to have money to save up for his first car is not worked out so well. Teenagers are not immune to the effects of inflation. Like you had mentioned, they pay the same at the gas pump. They pay the same for their cell phone bills, laptops. Not all parents are able to provide for those things for their children. Additionally, I've worked at Southeast Community College for many years and can attest to the financial challenges that many students face as they start college and also just start being an adult. Many students lack coming into college with any sort of a substantial savings, or don't have access to a vehicle, or they have a vehicle that doesn't run well, and then when things break, that becomes a huge barrier to them continuing on their educational goals. And just simply entering into the adult world without having any sort of financial savings makes that a rough transition. So while I acknowledge that they're trying with a step-up program, I still think that paying 14 and 15-year-old, yes, they are youth workers, but they're doing the same jobs, and it is unfair to pay them less wages for that same work. And so putting more money into their earnings will also increase their purchasing power, because believe me, the number of Target runs and other things in my household, my 12-year-old has purchasing power in this economy with my money. We are supposed to be leaving a better future for the next generation. And with those in power making changes like this pushed through, we are creating a more difficult world as teens enter adulthood. And while states like Minnesota and Iowa have lower wages for youth, we don't have to follow suit. Lastly, the will of Nebraska voters was already shared with our state senators in 2022, and we collectively all want to have affordable wages. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I just want to say also that Sarah's also a Northeast Rocket, so thanks for coming out. And I think that Sarah's spirit and Sarah's story really encapsulates what it means to come from Northeast Lincoln. Your strength, your grit, your authenticity. Thank you for all that you do. And everyone in Northeast Lincoln is super proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your time.
All right, welcome.
Good afternoon, City Council. My name is Alex M. Houchin. That's Houchin, no relation to the deputy. I will, in the interest of decorum, withhold my thoughts on LB 258, but I will say I could not care less what Liba thinks just about almost anything. So I've attended a handful of these meetings over the years, and I've watched many more on the live stream. And one of the phrases that gets repeated a lot in this chamber is "we the people." We the people, we want this. We the people didn't vote for that. We the people demand blah, blah, blah. I'd venture a pretty good guess that most of the folks who come here and use that phrase don't have the benefit of empirical data backing them up. Proponents of this measure do. We wanted 433 citywide, and it wasn't close. And the 2022 voting results reflect how much we wanted it. In fact, I actually went and dug up all the precinct level voter data, not just from 2022, but from the city elections in 2023 and 2025. And each and every member of this current city council won their elections by a margin smaller than that by which 433 passed, even in Southeast Lincoln. So I won't waste any more of your time. People behind me have better things to say, but please pass this. We already told you we wanted it.
Appreciate you coming down. Thank you. Yeah, welcome.
Hi, my name is Mateo Martinez. That's Mateo Martinez. I'm a member of the Lincoln Youth Advisory Council, just a member.
Can you use a little bit closer to the mic?
I would very much love to hear what you have to say. If you could just speak a little bit louder,
Okay.
then we can hear you.
So, as a lot of people know, we don't need to follow what the other states decide to do. It's because Nebraska's its own independent state. As some people, $13 isn't much for a minimum wage. That's barely nothing. And they have to pay bills and other stuff like their car, gas. And since the prices on other things are rising, like rent, they need to get more money to keep up with it, unless they get evicted. So I would please, like if the council would accept this, whatever, just accept.
Thank you. Yeah. All right, welcome. Yeah.
Pull it down.
It says not to move it, so I just.
We're just joking. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, my name is Amy Bettinger, Bettinger. I'm at 4215N, like November Street. I got a lot of facts together before I came up here, like I tend to do when I come talk to y'all. But after hearing a couple of these things, I'm actually going to switch it up a little bit. First of all, there was enough data, I would think, because our Constitution actually starts with "we the people." So interesting that we're just throwing it around, but the Constitution wasn't. It was pretty serious about those specific words being used. So we the people should have a very big impact. It was 67% of Nebraskans, and I don't know about any of you all, but we don't agree on a lot. So 67% is a pretty, that's not just a minor. It's not, 51, 52. That's 17 positive percent points over the halfway mark. So clearly we are in agreement. One thing I heard somewhere, I didn't come up with this, but it resonated really hard with me, and I find it interesting, is generation after generation, you want to improve, you want to make things better, you want, in theory, you don't want your children to have to suffer the way that you did. You want their life to be better than yours. Until our generation. I'm a millennial. We get, a lot of crap. But anyway, this is the generation before and before them seem to be some of the first that truly, really, really want their children and future generations to suffer just as much as they did. If you are not working as hard as they did, if you are not, what is it on the Rugrats? Something, 15 miles in the snow uphill, said Grandpa. So, if you're not doing that, then your walk was useless, apparently. I find that to be an issue and something that really just stuck with me ever since I heard it, because you see it again and again and again. Nothing is for the children, but then we're supposed to save the children too, I hear. So I get a little confused on what, all I ask for is continuity, really. You can disagree, but could you be consistent with that and actually display the same values? That would be my ask for your arguments, because then they lose any water or whatever that phrase. I'm not very good with phrases, if you can't tell. Anyway, I'm here in favor of this. Thank you, Mr. Bowers, for bringing it. The pieces of facts that I have is that I looked at the price of Jersey bed sheets, just out of curiosity. When I was coming out of high school, I was getting paid $7 an hour, $7.50, give or take, I think, and I was on the higher end. Minimum wage has been raised. I was getting $8. I wrote it down, $7.50. I rounded up. Minimum wage has risen less than $7. However, a set of queen size basic Jersey sheets in 2010 was approximately $20. Today it's $30. So we haven't really been raising minimum wage any different than anyone else. And things are still increasing. If the argument is that raising the minimum wage is going to trigger increases, why are they happening now? Because we haven't raised it yet. So why am I paying more for things across the board? Why are my Jersey sheets, their minimum cost has gone up more than $7? Why can't we expect the wages to go up as well? Just for sheets, everyone needs bed sheets, and there's people that don't get to have them because they can't afford them. That's a fact. That's truth. And at the end of oh gosh, I have so many minutes left. All right. So youth pay. I'm going to say the same thing that everyone else has said. It's the same job, and I am very privileged. I grew up staunchly middle class. I never had struggles. There were a lot of moments where my close friend who did struggle would talk to me and be like, that's just you, right? And I'd be like, no, I did not actually. So I didn't have struggles that a lot of people here telling you their struggles had. And I don't. So I might be wrong, but I guess I don't know a 14 or a 15-year-old that really wants to work other than to save for college, which is going up super fast, or to support their family. So why not pay them what they're worth? It's just an insult to me. Same job. And that's it. Again, thank you. Thank you for listening. There's my 5 minutes. Thank you, clock.
All right. Thanks for coming down. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Oh, it's my turn. So for you that are there, I hope you can read and peep the shirt that I'm wearing.
we gathered at in the audience. Felt like it was an appropriate shirt for today. My name is Majee Miller Jenkins. I am a resident in Northeast Lincoln, and I'm here today on the rare occasion that I get to be here to support something. I am excited that James Michael Bowers has stepped to the plate in this moment in our historical times that we keep occupying to hear us and do what he has been elected to do, which is to take the will of the people and solidify it into a tangible law that we can fall back on. And we did that. The Nebraska voters already did that. We voted. The law passed. And then a business owner decided that she wanted to keep her slave wages as slave wages, and so, or wage slaves as wage slaves. Either way. And now we're here again to be like, oh no, maybe democracy should be democracy. So I find it really interesting that so many people had to show up today to reiterate something that we already voted on. It's already been something that's been passed. I guess my biggest issue with this is that I have a 13-year-old son and a 12-year-old daughter, and I don't really understand. They've been raised on logic. So when I tell them that they're going to go into the workforce and do the exact same job as somebody who's 5, 8, 10 years older than them, and they're going to get paid less, they look at me like I'm stupid, because they should look at me like I'm stupid, because that's how we would look at anybody who votes down this bill. It's the same job. It is wild that in 2026 we're having French bread revolution conversations. I hope that people tune in to what your communities are telling you. We are telling you that we are suffering. The statistics are telling you that we're suffering. 1 in 5 children in Nebraska go to bed hungry. 1 in 5. Home dude that was up here was like, oh, Nebraska's all about agriculture, all about agriculture. How are you going to use that as a bragging point when you have starving children in your state? Make it make sense. I mean, all these statistics are available for everybody to look at, so it's not like hidden facts. But in a state where 1 in 5 children under the age of 19 are going to bed hungry every night, how dare we say that we're going to pay them less? You're already starving and struggling, but hey, if you are a younger age, that means you're less of a person. I'm pretty sure we've done that struggle. Do people not remember when they were 15? Do you not remember how much life sucked and how hard it was and how hard you had to work? As elected officials, I really hope that you do your job and make the living experience inside of Lincoln better, because that's what you're supposed to do. So thank you to James for doing his job so effectively and listening to the people. Again, it's not often that I get to come here and give you guys accolades on the things that you do. It's a pretty rare occurrence. So it's very refreshing, especially with as many breaking news that break my brain moments that are happening in the world right now. This is a breath of fresh air. Please give us space to breathe.
All right, welcome.
Hi, my name is Jess Parker. I live here in Lincoln and my address is on file. We did not plan the matching shirts. We showed up here like, oh, cool. So anyways, today I just wanted to talk about kind of my family's experience. I'm the mom to 3 kids, and 2 of which are ages 16 and 18. I know how hard it is for teens to be able to even find reliable work in the first place, and it's not for lack of trying. I helped my oldest kiddo with applications, and we probably applied at like 40 plus places for a part-time position initially. Many businesses do hire between 14 and 18 years of age, but just as part-time employees. So I guess like as adults, when we hear part-time, we're thinking 32 hours or less, right? But I have found out through my kids and their friends, part-time really means like 1 or 2 shifts a week, maybe 3 hours a week. And this is what happened to my 18-year-old the first few years of his work career. He was trying to save up for repairs on his truck that he desperately needed. His paychecks were about $60 to $70 after taxes, twice a month just for those minimal shifts. And that was both at a fast food franchised restaurant and at a chain movie theater. So after you factor in just his basic monthly bills, such as car insurance, which is $123, gas, which he drives a truck, so it's extra not cheap right now, and then his cell phone payment of $65, he was in the red every single month. He was not able to even save to put towards the truck repairs that he needed. So the job market for teens especially is already saturated, meaning there are a lot of applicants for each available position, and teams typically assume that they will be working more than those 1 or 2 hour shifts per week. Knowing how hard it is to even land a job and get hired anywhere, it seems highly unethical for our state as a whole to consider minor workers worth less than someone who is 18 or older. The people of Nebraska have spoken in 2022 during the minimum age petitions and finally a statewide ballot vote on increasing minimum wage. Senator Rabold's bill in the Nebraska legislature that was unfortunately passed is backtracking the will of the Nebraska voters. It really makes me question, at what point do we accept the will of the Nebraska voters? Is it when we like how they voted, or is it not when we maybe don't like how they voted so much? Then do we just dismiss it and do whatever we would like? I'm happy to see Lincoln stepping up and taking a stance and hopefully doing what's right by even just starting to discuss enacting the minimum wage ordinance for the city of Lincoln. Lincoln has strong roots in acceptance, equality, equity, and understanding. It makes sense that Lincoln would be the first city to bring forward an ordinance to make sure that those upstanding characteristics of our town are being upheld and that everyone in Lincoln, whether they are a teenager or an adult, are being treated fairly. If my kid could barely save up money, all while looking for other employment opportunities that did offer more hours just for his truck repairs, imagine how hard that would be for a teenager that was working literally to help support their family and to make ends meet and keep a roof over their family's head. And I was a teen mom. I often think about, what are teen moms doing right now? Like, you know, the cost of inflation affects us all. Like, think about like the cost of diapers nowadays. It's outrageous because of inflation and other issues. And inflation just does not discriminate in ages, such as our current minimum wage. So let's continue to set Lincoln teens up for future success in the workforce by honoring their time, their commitment, their skill sets, and their work ethic by paying them, at bare minimum, the standard minimum wage for adults within our state. And let's also not forget that minimum wage is not a livable wage by any way that you look at it. Paying someone, regardless of age, less than minimum wage is an insult. And I just want to make sure that, yes, there's a lot of people here to testify today, but the voices that you should really be paying attention to are all of the youth that have came up here and testified and have maybe reached out and emailed you. And I would just really encourage one-on-one conversations like from you all with members of the community who are of that 14 to 18-year-old working age, because they need to be seated at the table for this conversation because it directly affects them. Thank you.
Welcome. Hello, everyone. May the 4th be with you all. Thank you, James Michael Bowers and City Council, for giving us this time to speak on this. My name is Renee Carrillo. Pronouns are they, he. I'm an instructor of a second-year low voltage with Lincoln Electrical JATC. I'm on the IBEW 265 Executive Board, and I am their registrar. I also organize with Lincoln DSA, Lancaster County Dems, and other groups with Lincoln Resistance Coalition. I collected signatures for this raise the wage, as well as the paid sick leave, both of which were attacked by pro-capitalist and those with the lack of empathy. As a Democratic Socialist, I am in favor of this and ask you all to support this. If we want to support and give democracy the respect it deserves, we should respect the voters when they make their voice heard. If we want to support one another, making the minimum wage tied to the cost of living and raising the current minimum wage to $15 an hour, that is the best step forward. As a stepfather to 2 who work in the service industry, I am in support and ask you all to support this. My kid's time is worth the pay that reflects what it takes to survive, not what it takes to just get stuff, to just strictly survive. As a citizen, I ask that we pay our people more to keep more money in circulation here in Lincoln and in Nebraska. I ask that we respect our voice when we vote. More hands make less work. Many people are respected both in pay and in respect of their opinion. They will stick around and do more for our community. That's just what I wrote down, sitting here listening to people and kind of like rummaging my thoughts on this. And to kind of debate back with what the one opponent was saying, agriculture is not the only thing that Nebraska has going for it, especially Lincoln and Omaha. We have many industries within these two cities that are going to be boosted by raising the minimum wage. More people will have more money to spend, therefore go to these businesses, especially in a time when the city's wanting to revamp a lot of those industries, the music industry. Thank you so much for building O Street and doing what y'all are doing there. Things can only get better when we take care of one another. A lot of what we've already seen that's hurting these populations that are just going to be hurt worse with not respecting the vote and raising the minimum wage, it's happened in this capitalistic society. Corporations are making things cost more all on their own without the raise of wage here in Nebraska. Other things are at play, raising cost of living. If we don't do what we can to negate some of that and keep people and our resources here in Lincoln and in Nebraska, it's just doing everyone a disservice. Yeah, thank you so much for hearing this out, and I really ask that everyone support this amendment in this bill.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks for coming down. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Brent Lukey. I live at 2520 T Street here in Lincoln. Hello, all of you on the council. I woke up today and wrote these notes down on my phone, which I'm realizing I should have printed out because it's so small. But anyway, I woke up today with a rush of hope. Hope that at times during this crushing reality of polarization, indignity, and disrespect for democracy that we're seeing at the state level and beyond, that something is being done to push back locally. I believe that this minimum wage ordinance proposal by my district representative, Councilmember James Michael Bowers, something I'm proud to say, is a step back to the path that our legislators foolishly strayed from in Nebraska this last session. While I'm not a wage worker myself, though part of our household income is from wage service work, I'm certainly a worker who by the virtue of exchanging my skills and labor, like most other Lincolnites, brings home a paycheck from which to live. Like many, I have less authority in the decisions that affect the context around that paycheck than those that are predominantly opposing this bill. Though mine is admittedly greater than most, which is why I'm able to be here today. And I will just say I'm proud of this city and shocked in a good way how many people were able to make the time and the effort to come out today who have a much harder time taking the leave from work than me. So thank you to everyone, especially the youth. For a great majority of workers, they have little time, empowerment, or honestly energy after completing their duties to advocate for the least amongst them, amongst all of us. And I say least in the more workforce sense. I believe that this is why, when presented with the minimum wage item at the ballot, Lincolnites jump for the opportunity to at least provide some path towards a livable wage for the folks that make Lincoln run, the people that we often call least or entry level, but who do a lot of the hardest work. Living where I do in the core of the city, I'm no stranger to seeing the working poor, which can hardly be recognized as much less than victims of policy failure. While debt, health issues, and plain bad luck are all contributors of poverty, we often forget that access to money, the solution to piling bills in an increasingly unaffordable world, is the most straightforward reliever of suffering. Families often have to make tough choices, sending teens to work bagging groceries instead of doing extracurriculars, new mothers having to go back to work before they're truly recovered to stock shelves, or parents to their second gigs in warehouses while children do their homework and manage younger siblings at night. I believe, honestly, that it's a cruelty. The most of these have the greatest agency over shaping the workplace, our relationship between living and making ends meet, who benefit from the greatest from the toil of our wage workers, who deny a step up to those making sacrifices simply to get by, let alone doing so while also overriding the will of Nebraska voters. I believe it's short-sighted to fixate on the impacts it could have on those owners who could work counters and stock shelves they themselves own, when we already know how much this incredibly low wage floor in Nebraska is crushing so many of our neighbors. At the excuse that labor somehow directly transfers to the cost of goods, which I think a lot of people have spoken on, and I don't want to belabor it too much, other than cost spreading. You know, if you pay someone $2 extra an hour, how many cups of coffee is that spread over? I think there's certainly greater input costs affecting the price of goods than labor alone. I also find it absurd that we must limit the value we place on one another's work can't exceed that of neighboring states, or that the struggle of one successful person invalidates those behind. I myself am incredibly privileged, and I would never use the work that I put in to get where I am to devalue how others may struggle more for circumstances beyond their control. Nebraska instead should strive to provide a better life than those states and places beyond our boundaries. And Lincoln has an absolutely phenomenal opportunity today, or whenever you all vote, it might be next session, I'm not sure, to not just stick in the pack, but to truly set ourselves apart and provide a pathway to one's ability to build a good life for themselves. I'm proud to be able to speak on behalf of the many who can't be here today, although many of us are beyond me, because they have shifts that don't end till 5 or 8, or for whom this is their only time to sleep before they go in at 9 tonight. Again, I'm grateful for Council Member James Michael Bowers for pushing us to take this step back onto a path towards dignity for all Lincolnites. I urge you all to vote yes on this item to restore faith in one another, our democratic processes, and that Lincoln can take action to care for its most vulnerable and hardworking citizens when it's against the grain. Thank you all.
And before we begin here,
Chair Carlson, seeing that we are past the 2-hour mark, I would make and seeing that we still have a number of testifiers, I'd make a motion for a 5 to 10 minute recess.
Sure.
As is standard protocol when we have long hearings.
So, is there a second for that? Second. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll adjourn for 5 minutes for recess. Recess for 5 minutes.
Okay.
You are. All right, welcome back to the City Council meeting after the recess break of May 4th, 2026. We'll go ahead and continue with public testimonies. So welcome. Oh, she's waiting, Mrs. Bowers, yes.
Yeah, my name is Vita Bowers, and I'm from the planet Earth, and I reside in Lincoln, Nebraska. But I'm really kind of angry about this whole issue because this is based on votes. We're coming up on 250 years of our country's birthday. And during that 250 years, that's what we have sacrificed so many lives for, that the right to vote. And it says, it was it like almost 70% people said we want this. Our Constitution says, we the people, not we the legislation. And I think we need to think what past and current veterans and patriots have sacrificed for us to get the right to vote, and our vote should be respected above all else. And thank you. That's all I had to say.
All right.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers.
Thanks, Mom.
Thank you.
That was well said, Mom. That was her first time providing public comment after coming here for years. So
better not be the last.
Thanks, Mom.
All right, we can continue over here. Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Hiromi Corona, Jiromicorona. And first off, I want to thank James Michael Bowers for having this ordinance. We really appreciate the youth and young adults. We feel seen. So I'm in favor of this ordinance. I have been working since I was 12 years old. For 9 years, I've worked my butt off at minimum wage jobs. All the money I made when I was younger, I saved. In my parents' home, I faced physical, verbal, and emotional abuse. One day, I decided I had had enough and left. I left everything behind and slept on a couch for 3 months because I knew that was better than being subjected to abuse daily. The only reason I wasn't in a shelter was that I had some savings from money I had earned by working hard. I had just enough to get my first apartment and pay for necessities until I found a job. A job that didn't pay me the less than minimum wage for the first 90 days, because if it did, I would have been evicted from my apartment. I am outraged. Are youth and young adults not equal to everyone else? I have fought to have a seat at the table with adults by being on the Lincoln Youth Action Board. I am helping change the homeless system for youth and young adults with my lived experience. Youth and young adults who are homeless or facing abuse in their parents' homes will be there longer because they are earning less. Youth and young adults are being told they are less by lawmakers. Vote yes on the Lincoln minimum wage ordinance.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council. My name is Cassie Ross, CASSYROSS, and I'm the Policy Director for ACLU of Nebraska, 134 South 13th Street, Suite 1010, and I'm here to testify in support of item 2641. This ordinance will restore the will of more than 73,000 voters in this county. These voters decisively approved this increase. No carve-outs, no subcategories, no restrictions, as you've heard many times already today. And yet the legislature decided they knew better than the very voters who both elected them to office and approved fair wages. The legislature created a tiered system, not based on merit, job duties, or hard work, but by age alone, and enacting a sub-minimum wage solely for youth workers who may be emancipated minors, legally recognized as independent when it comes to housing, medical decisions, contracts, financial responsibility, except under these carve-outs passed at the state level, which treat these youths as less than deserving for equal pay for equal work. Solutions. This also includes youth workers who could be responsible for significantly contributing to their family's income, or youth working to save for their futures, education, housing, and other needs. The legitimacy of voter-driven laws depends on trust and consistency. If the rules of engagement change after the vote is cast, if carve-outs and limitations are introduced that were not part of the original measure, then the meaning of that vote is weakened. And over time, that weakens not only trust in one policy, but trust in the process itself. This is a foundational question about whether democratic decisions mean what they say. When voters overwhelmingly adopt a policy, especially one as clear and widely supported as this, the government has a responsibility to implement it faithfully, not creatively reinterpret ways to dilute its intended effect, not whether one agrees or disagrees with the policy in an abstract, but whether a clear and decisive vote of the people retains its authority after it's cast. The ordinance before you reflects that question. Will you honor the will of more than 73,000 voters in this county who made that decision, or will you accept a system where those decisions can be narrowed, reinterpreted, and effectively rewritten without returning to the electorate? The ACLU of Nebraska urges you to choose the former. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Welcome.
Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Hannah Young, HANNAHYOUNG, and I am full-time employed with the Nebraska Civic Engagement Table, but today I'm here in my capacity as a volunteer on the Cause Collective Advocacy Committee. Their address is 6900 Van Dorn Street, number 23. Cause Collective strengthens nonprofits to serve their community through collaboration, education, and advocacy with over 170 nonprofit members in the Lincoln area. I am here today in support of the Lincoln Minimum Wage Ordinance. Nebraskans overwhelmingly voted to increase the minimum wage here, and this initiative was critical to ensure that working Nebraskans are receiving a livable wage. Increasing the minimum wage can reduce income inequality, improve worker well-being, and boost the economy. Improving community well-being is at the core of many nonprofit missions, and it is much more challenging if their employees are constantly fighting income inequality. According to the Nonprofit Associated of Midland's recent Economic Impact Report, approximately 1 in 10 Nebraskans work for a nonprofit organization. The median earnings for nonprofit employees in Lancaster County is $40,435 compared to $43,043, the minimum earnings for all employed population in Lancaster County. Nonprofit organizations must continue to pay their employees a livable wage so they can continue to fill their missions. Like any type of business, paying a livable wage stops and disrupts the disruptions associated with constant staff turnover and leads to a more stable nonprofit workforce and higher quality services for the communities that they serve. Employee well-being should also be at the forefront of the nonprofit organizations, as employees who earn a livable wage are less likely to need multiple jobs, have high burnout rates, and have a higher dedication to the mission of their organizations. For those reasons, Cause Collective is in full support of the Lincoln Minimum Wage Ordinance, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for coming down. Appreciate it. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Ethan Penn, 8049 Lowell Avenue. I'd like to speak a little about the economic considerations here at play. So first off, with some of the couple speakers who've spoken in opposition, it's important to understand that a lot of this is part of the talking points of fear-mongering that comes with economic considerations with minimum wage. We've seen this in California as well. When they did minimum wage increases, they also said the same thing, that businesses will go out of business as a result of minimum wage increases. In fact, when they did the minimum wage increase, some businesses did in fact make this claim, but when it was investigated further, it was discovered that these businesses were going to fall anyway, and they just used the minimum wage as a scapegoat in order to talk about this. We've seen these similar ploys and talking points, especially when it came to Zohran Mamdani in New York City. There were a lot of very wealthy people and business owners who said, if Zohran gets elected, I'm going to move out of the city. But we've seen, as a result of the election, which he did win, and the time since, that those people have remained, those businesses have remained. And it's ultimately because profit is still there. There's still money to be made. They're just simply saying these things in order to get you to vote against it. And there's a very easy way to kind of demonstrate these numbers for minimum wage specifically. If you imagine a worker who makes $1 more from minimum wage increase, say at McDonald's, and that cost was 100% passed on to the consumer, which isn't typically the case anyway. But let's say it was. The price of the burger would not go up by $1. After all, that worker does not make one burger an hour if they make $1 an hour in wages. If they make $5 an hour, then 100% cost can go to the consumer would mean a 20 cents increase in their burger, which in that case, even if the worker were to, for example, eat 3 burgers a day from that person, would still come out 40 cents in favor of the worker, ultimately giving the worker more money to work with. And of course, there's also the consideration that if this is a minimum wage increase across the entire city, then in a similar way, everyone can afford more of these burgers in a greater margin without the business being particularly affected in terms of how much profit they're making per burger. And this is actually, you can actually see this, for example, in Denmark. There was a case where someone was comparing burgers back in 2021 at McDonald's. In Denmark, there was a $22 minimum wage with 6 weeks of vacation, a year of paid family leave, life insurance, and pension. And compared to the prices, Denmark's burgers $4.90, while in the United States, this same Big Mac was $5.66. It was more expensive in the United States, despite the fact that United States workers get pretty much none of these benefits and nowhere near that sort of wage. This correlation between wage and the increased cost of the product is not exactly very clear, and it's very obvious, like this is part of the reason why it is fear-mongering. There's also something else that's important to understand is that minimum wage at $15, even as a baseline, which is very much appreciated that it's a cost of living increase, but even at $15 is definitely not keeping in line with how it's been in the past. In 1968, when minimum wage was at its highest value ever, if we were to adjust for productivity, what kind of number do you imagine? Well, the number is a little under $23 when adjusted for productivity. However, this is productivity and not inflation. When you adjust that same number for inflation, the wage becomes $111. This number demonstrates how actually more unaffordable America has gotten in the past years. We saw someone stand up and say, well, I worked 2 jobs back then. Imagine how hard it must be for people who work 2 jobs today and have to account for inflation that he did not. So it's very important to understand that even $15 is largely not going to be enough, but adjustment of living increase does make it easier for the future, so people don't have to, for example, live with a wage that is 10% of what it was in the past in terms of inflation. I think it's also important to understand, when the person before was talking about I have to work for 2 jobs, like shouldn't you as well, that why do we have to sit here and say things like this when it's like kind of designating people as like wage slaves, saying that you have to work at this wage, we can't make things any better, and we can't increase it in any way at all. It's kind of just saying you just have to, take it. And I kind of just have to ask, like, where's this tree that our forefathers planted so that we could sit in its shade, as a phrase commonly is said? If these conditions can never improve, if these wages can never go up, if people can't go from 2 jobs to 1 job to have more free time to spend with their kids, spend with their family, where are these conditions that we say are continuously being improved in the United States? So I think for that reason, it's very obvious that while minimum wage is not going to solve everything, it's not going to resolve everything, it is definitely a step in the right direction, and these economic opposition there is just no real basis for it, not mathematically and not within the studies that have been conducted on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Over here, welcome.
Hello, thank you. My name is Reed Gahan. I'm at 2626 South 15th Street. I am a previous business owner and employer, a current landlord in Lincoln, and a former teenager. The subminimum wage The subminimum wage creates perverse incentives for businesses to hire 14 to 15-year-olds. The gentleman from the Business Association mentioned that 14 to 15-year-olds age out to real minimum wage at age 16. That is true for the individual, but not for the collective. There will always be more people in this age group, no matter who ages out. Economics 101 would tell us that a business owner will find the cheapest wage possible to accomplish their work. Hypothetically, what would stop a business from hiring 14 to 15-year-olds until they age out, fire them, and then replace them with another batch of younger folks? As currently written in state law, businesses actually have a financial incentive to do something like this. Additionally, the gentleman from the Business Association mentioned not wanting to pay adult workers the same as new hired teenagers. Thankfully, nothing in this ordinance prevents businesses from giving longer tenured employees raises above whatever the minimum wage may be. I believe this ordinance is good for workers, which is good for business. Again, with Economics 101, the better the wages, the more kids will enter the workforce. The higher the labor supply, the more choice businesses will have for who to hire, which, again, per economics, leads to the better outcomes. This ordinance works to correct the perverse incentives currently in place and creates a Lincoln that is more desirable for all workers, no matter how old. Thank you.
Thank you. Over here, welcome, Allie.
Hi. I was going to say good afternoon, but now I think we're in the evening. So good evening, members of the council. My name is Allie Christensen, and I'm here today as a resident and a renter in Everett. I live at 901 D Street. And like many, all but two folks who testified before me, I'm here to encourage you to vote yes and advance these wage protections. Thank you, Councilman Bowers, for introducing this ordinance and defending the will of Lincolnites. I'll repeat it as others have before. 7 out of 10 Lincoln voters approved this measure because of a shared belief that no Lincolnite should have to choose between food and health care, food and housing. When we have stable wages, we're able to contribute to our communities. We're able to have stability and have a better quality of life. I do want to clarify that while the 10 or so businesses that one person represented decided to not hire for more positions, unemployment rates in Lincoln have stayed stable, below 3% since this initiative passed in 2022. There may be some businesses who don't value their workers, and that is really unfortunate. I'm really grateful, Councilman Bowers, that you do value working people and that you are sticking up for our neighbors. We're approaching a local election, and a lot of folks here today, myself included, are knocking on our neighbors' doors, encouraging folks to show up to vote, trying to convince our neighbors, if not ourselves, that our local elections matter. They matter when our elected officials listen, when you follow through on what our communities are asking for. So many people came to testify today. We've been here for 2.5 hours. I kept trying to stand in line next, but the line just kept going. Geez, that's a testament to how important this issue is. On a Monday morning at 3 p.m., this is really an amazing turnout. I really hope that you pass this initiative and remind Lincolnites, remind your voters that their votes do matter and that we can count on you to listen and defend our votes when our legislatures aren't. So please, thank you, Councilman Bowers, and I urge you all to vote in support of this ordinance.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello. My name is Ashley Wilkson, 1500 South 70th Street. I'm here today as a representative of Mental Health Association of Nebraska. We are a local nonprofit that provides wraparound peer support services for folks experiencing mental health, substance use, trauma, or any other life-altering experiences, including reentry after incarceration. I'd like to share how the minimum wage ordinance can affect the people we serve, the community as a whole, and organizations like us. As a community, and even sometimes as providers, we forget that suicide prevention is much more than providing a hotline number or referring to resources. Suicide prevention that strictly focuses on the individual sends a message that we do not fully understand or empathize with their experiences. For a lot of us, distress doesn't just come from our own minds, it comes from our surroundings, our circumstances, and our levels of support. Addressing wage disparities and creating real change against poverty is also suicide prevention. Being able to provide for ourselves, our families, can combat our own feelings of hopelessness or worthlessness. Entry-level positions that would pay minimum wage aren't always known for flexibility. So while folks are trying to maintain their wellness by taking care of themselves, following up with appointments, dealing with transportation barriers, and challenges accessing medical care and medications, they often can't keep up with it all and keep their employment. Following through with the decision to increase minimum wage will at least help deal with some of these barriers. I've had the privilege to walk alongside hundreds of folks as they navigate returning to the community after incarceration. Most of them are well aware that they will have to start with entry-level positions, just as a lot of us did as teens or young adults entering the workforce. However, even after doing their time and completing their sentences, their past still have natural consequences that impact them even as they are trying so hard to do well. They may have garnishments, they may have past medical bills or child support, which again is natural consequences. However, when they can take such high percentages of an already entry-level wage paycheck It leaves our folks unable to live, let alone save. We have 3 transitional living homes that we do our best to give folks the time they need to build a solid foundation. Due to funding variations over the years, the length of stays have gotten less and less. So we are asking people with a lot of employment barriers, potential garnishments, and who are reacclimating to society to be stable enough to be on their own in 45 days. It's nearly impossible in the best of circumstances, but not adjusting minimum wage to a fair wage that accounts for today's cost of living is setting people up for failure, as well as putting more financial strain on organizations like us who will do whatever we can to make sure people have opportunities for success. One of the number one reasons I see people go back to old ways or even back to prison is when they get desperate. When they can't provide for their own or their family's needs, they go back to what they know. This isn't to justify bad decisions. We all have to deal with hardships, and many of us find ways to do that doesn't lead to prison. However, when you have folks who are truly trying to learn different, better, and healthier ways of coping, let them have a little more time to learn those skills before we immediately drop them in desperate situations. Overall, I believe following through with the decision to increase minimum wage will show support to those in our community that often have disproportionate challenges and have fallen through the cracks. As a small organization, it is scary and difficult to accommodate wage increases when funding and grants are not increasing. However, what we are finding is that if we can pay our folks livable wages that they can live off of and feel appreciated, they stick around longer. This increases employee retention, decreases costs of training and onboarding, and subsequently increasing the quality of services we provide, leading to better outcomes, leading to potential funding opportunities, and overall leading to healthier and more connected communities. Thank you, and thank you, Powers.
Thanks for coming down. Appreciate it. Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, council members. It's been a long day, but I am so thankful that you brought this to the table. This is a very important ordinance. And my name is Rhonda Mattingly. I am the executive director for Bridges to Hope, 3107 South 6th Street, Suite 107. And as most of you know, our organization works with individuals returning from incarceration as they rebuild their lives in our community. And I'm here today to speak in support of the proposed ordinance to restore the $15 per hour minimum wage. Every day we work with people who are doing exactly what we ask of them. They're seeking employment. They're showing up consistently and working to build stability after incarceration. But even when they find jobs, many are earning wages that fall short of what it takes to live in Lincoln today. Even modest increases in rent and basic living costs in Lincoln have made it harder for entry-level workers to keep up. Housing alone often consumes a large share of a person's paycheck, leaving little room for food, transportation, or other essentials. And according to the MIT Living Wage Calculator, a single adult in Lincoln needs about $20.70 an hour just to cover basic needs. That gap between what many jobs pay and what it actually takes to live is where many of the people we serve fall short, even while working full-time. For individuals returning from incarceration, that gap often determines whether stability is achievable or constantly out of reach. Employment is one of the strongest predictors of successful reentry. When individuals can earn a living wage, they are more likely to maintain stable housing, support their families, and remain on a positive path. When wages fall short, even strong effort and determination can be undermined. Lincoln voters have already expressed support for a $15 minimum wage. Restoring it aligns policy with the will of the community while strengthening economic stability for working families. From our direct experience, raising the minimum wage would provide meaningful, practical support to people working hard to rebuild their lives. It strengthens families, reduces barriers to stability, and contributes to a safer and more resilient Lincoln. And for these reasons, I respectfully urge you to vote in favor of this ordinance. And I thank you for your time and all your service to our community.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Robert Way. I haven't been here for a while, but thanks for giving me a chance to speak First thing I'd like to do is ask to enter into evidence before the council, article from the Nebraska Examiner from November 27, 2025. We all get so much news nowadays, but I think it's good to remember that we had a 43-day period where we did not know if people were going to get food stamps. So it was kind of always assumed in America people would never starve. And then we had a 43-day period where maybe they will. So as we're talking about people having to get jobs, having to survive, even the MIT thing, which I think is great, and I encourage everybody to look at it, assumes a social safety net, which has frayed. The
There he goes.
Okay, could you zoom? You go back.
Oh, so close.
There we go. I hope everybody can read this. This was the final vote for the change of the Ordinance Act. As you can see, it barely achieved the votes necessary to override the people. It was not an overwhelming vote in the unicameral. Further breakdown of where, I want to enter this into evidence first. This is where the Nebraska senators choose to say they are from on that list. The one, I took their word for it. The ones who listed Lincoln, I counted them as Lincoln voters. These are the votes by senators who claim Lincoln as their hometown. There are 3 that for yes, which was a change and a reduction of the cost of living allowance, and there are 4 from Lincoln who opposed it. So yet again, in Lincoln, when this is taken to a vote, it's supported. Again and again and again. Opponents of the measure have said that this will lead to inflation. That is something to be scared of. Inflation is scary and it costs people the ability to survive. So I went and I looked at the monthly inflation every month since we started raising the minimum wage. Obviously, we're talking about a very small raise going forward as opposed to the dollars amount we've had. And if you look at these numbers, there's not a great range. The let's see. The lowest is the month after the bill was first passed. The highest is this year when the raise couldn't be in effect. But it's always about 1.9 to 3.3 in the range. There's no correlation between the raises we've already made in Lincoln to the minimum wage and inflation in this town. It's not borne out by the data. If people want to come up here and first name city councilman from the podium, which I've never seen before, maybe they should bring some facts on what's going on. This is what the wage will be in 10 years if we keep the law passed by the unicameral. This is what that wage would be if we assume that inflation or the consumer price index from the Midwest, which is the term used in the legislation, was used. Last year it was at 3.4%. This is if you average the last 20 years of the Midwest consumer price index. When we start to look at this, we start to realize we are talking about compound growth. Compound growth is why your mortgage takes 20 years to pay off. This is what business people understand, and it took me a long time to figure out because I'm not as smart as them. But the difference between enacting Councilman Bauer's strategy and not initiating it is not pennies. It will be dollars in 10 years. Laws last forever unless they're changed. I'm out of time, so unless anybody has any questions, I will yield the floor.
All right, Councilwoman Washington.
Thank you, Chair Carlson. Mr. Way, would you please put the last 3 pages side by side?
Yes, may I go over them again?
I just need to have
I'm gonna leave them with
visual
council.
of what you just said.
This is under the proposal. If you take the numbers by Senator Raybold and 33 other senators, but only 3 of which were in Lincoln, and many of them were outside of town, which I find kind of, if I went to their small town and told them how to run things, I don't think they'd take that well.
All right.
This is with 3.4, that's last year's consumer price index in the period specified by the bill, and I didn't want to inflate the numbers, so I just took the 20-year average here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, appreciate it. Thank you, Robert.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Danielle Conrad. I'm proud to represent North Lincoln in the Nebraska unicameral legislature and to be a constituent of Councilman Bowers. My address is 3818 Dudley Street, Lincoln, Nebraska 68503, and I'm here today in support of item 6C, 26-41, to amend city code and to adopt a Lincoln minimum wage ordinance. Honorable council people, I will tell you that there are really 2 relevant questions before you today. Can you adopt this ordinance, and should you adopt this ordinance? I assure you that the resounding answer should be yes on both counts. I've been in public life for a long time, and I know that you have hard and difficult decisions on issues that come before this body that have great points all around as you're trying to solve important problems to ensure that we maintain and grow our strong quality of life here in Nebraska's capital city. But I will tell you this, in all my years of in public office, what's not a hard vote is a vote to uphold the will of the people. That's not a hard vote. That doesn't fall into that category of a challenging question for a policymaker. It is quintessential to our democracy that we have shared values like a peaceful transfer of power, like upholding the will of the people as effectuated at the ballot box, whether it's for you or for me or on citizen-led initiatives like earned sick leave, minimum wage, medical cannabis, school vouchers, the death penalty, voter ID. You're well familiar as elected leaders with the key issues that have been on our ballots in Nebraska in recent years. And when it comes to answering the first question about whether or not you can pass the ordinance that is before you today, I contend that you can. There is no specific preemption on the books in Nebraska that would prevent a community from setting a wage standard that's right for them. This is really important to look at. We have key examples right here on the city code already that reflect our community commitment to setting a higher bar to help working families succeed. You're familiar with the Lincoln Living Wage Ordinance that has been on our book literally for decades, that says we have a higher wage standard for public employees and those that do business with the city of Lincoln. No one's brought forward preemption challenges to that, and it has served our community well. You know that there have been challenging debates in these council chambers about whether or not pre-Bostock, our community should set a different standard in regards to employment discrimination for LGBTQ members of this community. We know that our council people and colleagues up the road in Omaha have had those same robust discussions. We know that the city of Grand Island has a non-discrimination policy for public employees that predated Bostock. We know that we respect local control in Nebraska to ensure that we can get the right decision for each of our local communities. And we're not alone in this regard. Because of a failure to act on the federal level, our minimum wage has been stuck at about $7.25 an hour since about 2009. And after years of trying to raise that through Congress and through the legislature, the last time it was raised in the legislature was back in 2007, the people came together and they utilized the first power reserved to us in the Nebraska Constitution. I didn't write it. You didn't write it. It's not from the legislature. It's from the people themselves. They reserved the first power to have a co-equal, if not greater, voice in policy making because they trusted the people over politicians. We have some of the earliest and most robust tools of direct democracy in our state constitution, as evidenced through referendum, recall, and initiative. And in each instances, when these tools have been utilized, it's always been in an expansive way with deference to the will of the people instead of a restrictive manner in regards to legislative interaction and judicial interpretation. And what I think it's important to note is in years past, when cynical politicians on the state level sought to restrict local government's powers to make the right decision for their community, those bills haven't moved out of committee. They haven't been signed by the governor. They haven't become the law of the land. Therefore, we have full flexibility and authority, you have, in this community to set the right wage standard for Lincoln.
And Senator, that
Yes.
is 5 minutes, but why don't I see if there's any questions
I was
from
just
council,
getting started,
Councilman
yes. Yeah.
Bowers? Yeah.
Senator Conrad, I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for everything you've done to be supportive of this issue and this measure. I don't think we would even be at this point if it wasn't for you. So thank you for everything that you've done to help champion this issue. And especially you bring a unique perspective as being the most senior member of the Nebraska legislature. You probably understand the norms and the processes and policies than anyone else that's in that body. So I just got a couple of questions based on your experience and your expertise that I'd like to ask you. From your perspective at the legislature, how clear was the intent of voters when they approved Initiative 433?
It was very clear. It was unambiguous.
One of the things that folks have said is that the legislature has the role and the ability to be able to change the ballot initiatives that have been approved. Would you characterize LB 258 as clarifying what voters approved or changing it?
Oh, I think it clearly changed it. I mean, if you look at the letter of the text and the measure in LB 258 itself as compared to the ballot initiatives adopted by voters through initiative, I think it was 433 back in 2022, you can see in plain language that there were major strike-throughs and new language, changing the voters' intent in regards to how we calculate inflation, for one, which, by the way, the voters had before them an inflationary index that was tied to our region, to the Midwest, that was specific to our economic considerations right here. You also see changes to how we pay young workers. That was not part of the ballot question that voters approved resoundingly. So what you saw was an artificial cap, and then you saw significant carve-outs that deviated from the will of the people as evidenced at the ballot box in 2022.
Does this ordinance, in your view, restore what voters intended in 2022?
It does. It does. I believe that this is an important effort to give voice to the voters of Lincoln, to let them know that their local community leaders care about what they think, care about when they show up at the polls and cast their vote in favor or against a measure that's important to them in their lives. I can tell you that being out on the campaign trail, I've talked to countless voters, Republicans, Democrats, independents, as it should be. And one of the most common refrains and frustration I've heard from voters in recent years is that this effort of legislative meddling in regards to the will of the people it should not be tolerated and should not be made normative or commonplace as it is in perhaps other jurisdictions. This is not the history of Nebraska, to see this kind of negative tension between the voters and their elected leaders in Nebraska as evidenced in recent years. And look no farther than the impact on minimum wage workers themselves. If you do the calculations, you can see that there's significant loss of real earning power, real wages, real dollars and cents that add up not just over the course of many years, but in the course of every paycheck. Real workers who are providing the same work today could be paid less after LB 258 goes into effect. That's less money for groceries, gas, childcare, and health care in the middle of an affordability crisis. It adds up to hundreds of dollars for young workers in lost wages per year and thousands of dollars in lost wages for adult workers who see the restraint by the inflationary cap being changed.
And Senator, one other question that I have for you, it kind of following up with what you just said, is what message does it send to voters when a policy that they've approved is later changed by the legislature in this drastic way?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councilman Bowers. I think, again, in common sense and in conversation with Nebraska voters, I think they're very frustrated, and rightly so, with how the legislature has interacted with their decisions at the ballot box. They were clear and unequivocal. We want public dollars to stay with public schools, but cynical politicians keep trying to enact voucher programs. We want to have modest but meaningful minimum wage increases, but cynical politicians wait till they get a supermajority in the legislature to cap and carve up those modest but meaningful increases. The same for earned sick leave, the same for medical cannabis that was adopted many years ago, resoundingly at the ballot box. And we still are not really much closer today than we were subsequent to the vote in having access to humane care for Nebraskans who need it. So it's more than just political jousting. It's really, I think, has real impact for real people's lives. And I think an additional impact beyond not having access to medical cannabis or modest but meaningful pay increases is that it has a very chilling and detrimental effect on democracy itself. We, all of us, regardless of our political ideologies, love our country and love our community. And we encourage citizens to get informed, to show up at the ballot box, to let their voice be heard. And I don't always like the result of that. It might not always align with my political thinking, but I respect it because that's quintessential to who we are as Americans. And so I'm deeply worried about the real life impacts that this approach will have for hardworking Nebraska families, but I'm also deeply concerned that it will have a chilling impact on voters' engagement in civic life.
Senator, thank you so much for, like I said earlier, everything you've done to help get us to this point, and then also for your public comment. Again, just to reemphasize, as the most senior member of the legislature, as someone that's served in 2 generations of the legislature, I think you really bring a unique perspective and really understand the role of the legislature and also our city in general. So thank you so much. Your words carry a lot of weight.
Thank you, Council Member Bowers. And if I may just add one more point on the record, just from a technical perspective, in case it's helpful to your thinking. When it comes to whether or not this body should pass this measure, again, you're not constrained by preemption. Additionally, when you look at things like the legislative non-meddling provision that was added to clarify how policymakers interact with the will of the people in Article 3, Section 2, you can see back in 2004, Nebraska voters again resoundingly moved from a simple majority of the legislature being able to change ballot initiatives to a supermajority because they trusted people more than politicians and they were tired of legislative meddling. That high threshold has only come into play once before recent years after being on the books for decades. And that was a non-controversial issue related to kind of a cleanup provision in relation to gaming issues that passed 49-0 because it was a technical cleanup in that regard. Non-controversial. The only time this high threshold that again was adopted by a vote of the people has been overcome is in the last 2 years in the legislature in regards to these issues, impacting working families, impacting patients in need of care, impacting our public schools. That is not normal with our political culture in Nebraska, and it should not stand. And what's important to know about the non-meddling provision is that in Nebraska, the vote of the people, it's not advisory. It's not a poll. It's an actual vote of the people that has concurrent authority with legislative decision-making. And in the instances of non-meddling and non-interference, it's actually protected even more so, or should be. So can you pass this ordinance? You can. Should you pass this ordinance? You should. You've seen the chorus of voices here today that are hopeful about the leadership that you might provide to our community, that are responsive to the citizens with their votes and in the middle of an affordability crisis. It shouldn't be controversial or contentious to uphold the will of the people. That should be the first order for elected leaders.
Thank you so much, Senator.
Councilman Weber.
Thank you, Chair Carlson. Senator Conrad, thank you so much for coming down. I was going to ask about legislative meddling, so I appreciate you opining on that. My only other question then is, I see that it's past 5 p.m. and you're advocating for folks, so do you miss session or is there another reason you're down here?
Well, actually, I have full confidence in the wonderful members of the Lincoln City Council to take this matter up, but I did want to be here to provide perhaps some technical information that might be helpful to your decision-making, Councilperson Weber. And this is also just an issue that's very, very important to my district in North Lincoln, and an issue that's very close to my heart. I, right out of law school, worked with then Councilman Werner to adopt the Lincoln Living Wage Ordinance. The first bill I passed in the legislature was to increase the minimum wage. I led the citizen initiative in 2014, and I've been battling to support working families over the past couple of years in the legislature. So I definitely am missing dinner, which is never a great thing when you have two busy kids at home. But I believe that it's so important to stand up for economic justice and for democracy whenever you have an opportunity. And this gives me an opportunity to do both.
Thank you. Thank you for your tirelessly advocacy.
Thank you, Councilperson.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions, Council?
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Senator. Welcome.
Hi, Michael Henry again, 2801 South Street. And again, I work for the state of Nebraska, and I'm a member of the Nebraska Association of Public Employees. And I just, yay. Yay, okay, yeah, that's right, brother. I wanted to say that this doesn't actually affect me as a state employee. Our wages are negotiated every 2 years. It is, to me, worth pointing out that our labor contract that took effect on July 1st of 2025 is the first one to even recognize an association with state employee wages and the minimum wage. We're not actually bound by those laws. It used to be the starting wage was $12.50. And now we finally got it up to where it's the expressed intent of both parties that we'll have a floor at $15 an hour. And that started in July of last year. As to LB 258, I just kind of wanted to say that it felt like a really insufficient solution to a problem that didn't exist in the first place. I pretty much agree with every young person that came up and said that they were being made to feel like second-class citizens. That's basically what these carve-outs seem to do. If you're a grocery sacker, you shouldn't have to work for 4 years as a grocery sacker to then earn your way to the minimum wage. or I guess 2 years plus 90 days or 180 days. You know, the minimum wage is the minimum wage, and there shouldn't really be carve-outs for anything like that, because we don't know the individual situation. Maybe they're working 20 hours a week and getting some spending money. Maybe they're a secondary breadwinner for the entire family. And so that's an important thing to consider, is that it should be something that's uniform for everybody. Just to, you know, we talk about legislating morality, but what we're really trying to do here is do what's just. And I think that, especially in a societal framework, can kind of transcend morality a little bit. I think that's kind of what we're going for here, is we want to treat people justly, and that involves not carving out second tiers or second class citizenry. So I will also say, Councilor Bowers, I posted this on your Facebook page. You made me think about it. My first job at minimum wage was $3.35 an hour, which in today's dollars is $8.69. I bought a car with my own money for $1,900, which is about $5,000 in today's money. And as soon as I had my own car, what immediately happened is I could get myself to work. I could work more hours. I could start doing errands for the family. And it took a load off of my mother and my stepfather. And so that was really important. And I mean, you think $3.35 isn't much, but I was able to do those things. But the cost of things has gone up so much that if I worked full time at minimum wage, I'd have to work 3 years and not pay taxes and not pay anything else to even afford 4 years at UNL. You know, $93,000 or whatever that would be for 4 years. If I'm working $15 an hour, that's $31,200 a year before anything else comes out. And so it's not really something a person can do these days. As a young person, to just work their way through college, that's not really how it works anymore, I think. And it's just, the times have changed, the economy has changed, family structures have changed, communities have changed, and I think this resolution, which, by the way, I'm firmly in support of 26-41, has that flexibility. The cap on the cost of living adjustment was a bad idea, and I think that just Lincoln leading with that forward look and the flexibility that's built into future needs. You know, you're addressing future needs and the possibility of future needs now in a way that that flexibility will be needed. We're going to need that boost, honestly. I looked at the numbers in the last 5 years, and counting for August of 2025, the CPIU, which your ordinance is predicated on, 4.5%. So 3 times the level that's put on, that the cap is in. And the cap doesn't flex. You know, if it's like it was 3 years ago and it's 8.1% and your COLA is still only going to be 1.5%, that's not helpful, because everything else goes up in price. Health insurance goes up. You're not getting a raise. You know, and that was something that we struggled with as state employees, where if we got a 3% raise, that might get eaten up by medical premium, you know, or cost of parking downtown, or cost of gas for the commute, any of those kind of things. So I just think that, sorry, I'm kind of rambling here at this point, but I just wanted to say that I very much support what you're doing here, and I wanted to thank you especially for having the temerity to stand up for Lincoln workers. So thanks for your time.
Thanks. Appreciate you coming down. Welcome back. Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, first to begin, Mr. Chairman, we are on 6C, right?
Correct.
I don't want to repeat last week.
For the clarification.
Okay.
Yeah. Good work. Yeah.
So, all right.
Name.
Well, it's obviously been a long day or night or calendar year. However, this meeting has went. We've heard a lot of voices tonight, that's for sure. Numbers, percentages, citations, acronyms, names, organizations, anecdotes, and as we just heard from Senator Conrad, an entire legal brief. I too came with prepared remarks. I even came with demonstrations for the projector. But nearly as everyone stood up around me, when the mics were primed, I decided to sit back down. As soon as people were both in front of me and behind me, I hadn't even moved an inch by then. I must admit, a part of me did that because of the length of the line. But there was a strange part of me that did so for another cause. And that was because I was curious about what the people had to say in that line. And so I sat down, I got out this piece of paper, originally a demonstration, and I got working. I listened. I heard the same speeches that the rest of you guys heard tonight. Some comments, heartfelt, gut-wrenching. Some spicy, to say the least. But the more and more precise these syllables by each of these people here tonight were delivered at a more and more confident volume, I couldn't help but notice something louder. Behind each word, even those lacking any emotion, I noticed that behind those words lied a powerful yet simple demand. Listen to us. Listen to us. In the world of politics, brightly lit upon the freshly waxed stage of the next election cycle, politicians and special interest groups, I think a good example being the gentleman here to speak for the trees, or the businesses, they all stood up here before the podium, as they commonly do, and they proudly proclaimed they would fight the good fight, and that they would fight the good fight for hardworking people. But I think all of us here tonight know that that's not how the story ends. We all know the result of what happens after that day in November. It's the same day. In the world so sophisticated, with titans loud, with narrowed paragraphs, if there is one thing that you all should know in conclusion of tonight's very long city council meeting, considering every person that spoke before me, I think it's this. We're not interested in lifting up any other voice but our own. So, considering this long meeting, I thought I'd give you guys a short recap. 311,000 of us voted for ballot initiative 425 in 2014. 8 years later, 387,000 of us doubled down in 2022 with Initiative 433. In 2026, the Capitol and Governor's Mansion blindsided us with the passage of LB 258. It just took 33 senators. Now, in contrast to the Lorax, I'll close with this. We, the people, do want you to blindly respect our votes. And we want you to support the minimum wage ordinance brought to you by Councilman Bowers. And I would like to be quoted on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Would you mind giving your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Lyon, Lyon, Ali, Ali, Lopez, Lopez.
Thank you.
And a student at TCA.
Mm-hmm.
If your teacher doesn't give you an A, we still have public comment. You can always come back for a future public comment.
Very good.
All right.
I appreciate
Thanks for
it.
coming down. Council, any questions at all? No? All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Speaking of which, happy retirement, Professor Duden. Thank you, guys.
All right. Next up, welcome, Adam.
Good evening, counselors. I'm Adam Hens at 1919 Prospect Street, just speaking on my behalf. I think this has been just an amazing show of support for this resolution, which I'm in support of. I'm not going to take up more time than I really need to just to make my points. I remember when I was growing up by Wagon Train Lake, and we would detassel, and we would work so damn hard detasseling. And then I got a job picking strawberries at Rocaberry Farm, and we would work by the box. We'd get paid by the box to do that, so the harder you work, the more you'd get paid, right? Eventually, living out in the country, you need to get a car so you can go in town, and I got jobs vacuuming apartments, washing dishes, and I was really lucky. The thing that I was paying for was gas, insurance, and stuff like that. But there were people that I was working next to that were paying for their rent, paying kids my age, like they were helping their parents get by. And I think that's really the thing that we need to keep in mind is when you increase the minimum wage by a little, you help folks out a lot because proportionally their income is raised by so much more. I owned a coffee shop for 10 years, and the people that I would hire, and I was never really afraid of minimum wage all that much because I really wanted to just take care of them. These were the people that I lived with every day right next to me, right? And, if they needed a raise and they were a great worker, they definitely would get it. I mean, the people that need the money the most are the ones that are going to work the hardest. And eventually either you reward them with that kindness of a better paycheck, or they burn out and their health declines and bad things happen, they make bad choices, or you help them a little bit. And seriously, when you raise the minimum wage as a business owner, yeah, it's not great, and it's something maybe to complain about. But man, you're really helping people that are really right next to you living. And again, younglings, some of them are not just getting cars and insurance and soda pop. Like, they really are contributing to their families that have high medical costs, high rent. Life happens to folks, and man, how amazing is it that some kids actually step up and help their families like that. And so they deserve that minimum, at least. And it's a minimum. God. And so I want to recognize all the work that's been done to raise the minimum wage throughout all of these years. This is a discussion that's been happening for so many years, and so many people have worked so hard just to get to 15. And I want to recognize that and say thank you to every single person that's helped push this along and get us to where we are today. Life is so much more different than it was when I was a young kid around the turn of the century. And life is so much different than when I ran a coffee shop. My kids have such a hard time just finding work in general, let alone minimum wage work. And I know that's not just them. It's so many children, so many young adults, really, that are looking for work and can't work. And the wage jobs aren't even the jobs that a lot of them have. It's these giga jobs where they're doing, they're doing Uber or something like that, something that's like more of a digital tech thing where they're not even getting paid per hour, and they're probably being exploited, by doing that stuff. So, so I'm really happy that we have amazing city councilors that are willing to step up and do the right thing with the vote that the majority of Nebraskans already approved. So, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to comment? If so, please come forward now. Anyone else hasn't commented yet that would like to, please come forward now? Right, seeing none. What a wonderful display of democracy here and participation in your government. Appreciate that. Everyone that talked tonight, too. But we'll go ahead and proceed.
That concludes Section 6 of the agenda. Section 7 is ordinances, third reading, and related resolutions. I'll call item 7A. Item 7A is approving the third amended and restated facilities agreement between the West Haymarket JPA and City of Lincoln, Nebraska, introduced by Duden.
Didn't hear that. Would you repeat?
I'm sorry, would you say that again?
Oh,
Introduced by.
Duden.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Washington. Any discussion?
Let's do it.
Seeing none, please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Next is our Section 8 resolutions. First readings are items 8A through 8J. Section 9 is ordinances. First readings and related resolutions are items 9A and 9B. And our pending list are items 10A through 10C.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to adjourn.
I would second that.
Second by Duden. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you all.